that I think he played mid to poor.
Okay.
And I think he would think he played mid to poor. But fortunately, Twistzz and Naf are fucking amazing.
Like beasts, yeah.
They are amazing. Like those
Naf
two
has surprised the
guys.
shit out of me because he's the one who's been like, he's always been Mr. I can do everything, and he's been moved around a billion times, and somehow he keeps doing it, and he's like in the best form that I've seen him in a long time. Even now, like it's insane.
The world is changing quickly. Shoot it.
The world is changing, but one thing remains the same. Victories with 1xBet.
Since the dawn of CSGO, we have been there. Observers of all that competition can reveal. Elation, fear, triumph and heartache reach out from every frame. From the small studios and conference rooms to the epic arenas, the feeling is still the same. We live and breathe this game. This was CSGO Through the Lens. Buy now at hltv.org/shop.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, Counter-Strike fans around the globe, welcome to another installment of HLTV Confirmed. We are back. It is Sunday night. Blast has just concluded. And, well, guess what? Cologne is about to kick off in a couple of days' time. Tonight, I've lost the preview. Fuck. Oh, wait, I was in the preview over here. Never mind. I got to thank the sponsors or sponsor. It's just 1xBet. There's nothing else we need to say other than gamble responsibly. So shout out to 1xBet, and we'll be, giving away a knife tonight if you guys have been keeping track with the social media. Now, we got Prof, we got Striker, we got Lucas, and tonight we have Pita joining us. Now, if you're not familiar with Pita, then you're probably 16 years of age, and that's okay. You know, some of you are young. We do have a newer audience. We've definitely got an older audience. But for those of you who are the uninitiated, look, a 1.6 player, the tail end of 1.6, playing for legendary organizations such as Fnatic, then into the early stages of CSGO, was playing in the SK Gamings, coaching NIP and a whole bunch of slew. Even went over to North America for a while and enjoyed a bit of what CLG had to offer. Peter, thank you for joining us tonight. What's going on, mate?
Good question, actually. Time flies. I've been away for, what is it, like 6-7 months, but feels like these months have just flown by really quick. Mostly just doing some Swedish commentary, following the Swedish teams, or at least the teams that have Swedish players in them. So that's what I'm doing right now. Obviously also trying to get back to coaching, but we'll see what happens.
Well, you don't like being on the broadcast, mate? You don't like doing the commentary stuff, or you prefer to be involved with the team?
I think the team
okay,
is definitely where I want to be, but I think just doing some commentaries is making sure I am still up to date, following the scene, and that's what I do right now.
You never have to worry about winning or losing, though, if you're only commentating. So yeah, I see my Lucas. I see, and I'll try and fix it, mate. Give me a second. All right. You guys keep the conversation going. I'm going to try and fix my webcam. How does that sound? That sound good for everybody?
That sounds great. Yeah. I mean, Swedish summer though, pretty dank. I can confirm, attest to
dank,
that.
Are you mad? It's already like 10 years. What year is it? You said
year?
dank. I haven't heard the word dank in like 15 years.
I'm old. I'm definitely an old guy now. But yeah, I don't know. Just talking from your experience, as you said, Swedish teams. You're following Swedish teams or teams with Swedish players, because if it's only Swedish teams, there's not that much to follow. What's the vibe right now about Sweden? How do you feel right now?
I mean, we've fallen so low in Swedish CS compared to what we had 10 years ago, or even less. So now we're just happy, if we have one Swedish guy, then obviously we will follow him. And yeah, I mean, it is what it is. But I think Swedish CS is on the uprise. I really do. And I think maybe in like a year or two, I think Swedish CS might be coming back. We'll see.
All right. Okay. Well, Johnny Speed's out there. My webcam's fixed. Lucas just has to put me in, but I'm back. All right. A quick little technical fix. It'll probably die again about 3 to 4 more different times. And if people see me swatting around the room, there is one fly in my house somehow, and it's been annoying me all day. So yeah, I apologize for that. But look, I want to get into tonight's conversation. We have a lot to talk about. There's obviously Blast groups that have just come to their conclusion. Then we have Cologne. And I think a lot of that conversation is going to be quite meshed together. It'll be intertwined. So, and also it's going to be difficult tonight to draw hard conclusions, but maybe we can. I don't know. I'm not sure. I want to delve into your tweet a little bit later when we talk about G2 Pita, with the one you made about them being good in the short run. I think that'll be, because I agree with that. I'd like to hear a bit more about that. So do we have any other housekeeping that we need to do, Prof, about Cologne coming up or anything like that, like in terms of our live event before we get into the nitty-gritty?
We're doing the live event in Experian. It's sold out in like 1 day, 24 hours or something. So don't really need to do anything much about that. But people can tune in. It's going to be on Thursday, so night before the playoffs start. Also, just we'll on the lookout for guests, so players or people around that are interested. Hit me up about that. That's
okay.
it.
All right. Nothing crazy. All right. Well, I guess let's get into the chit chat now. Run the bumper, Lucas. Let's talk about some recent news. All right, we're back, and not a lot of recent news really to discuss. Most of it's going to be about the results and the preview for Cologne. But I have spoken, I would say, a decent amount about the Talon team, but apparently not enough for most people to have been listening. So they announced their roster just the other day. It is Azza in-game leading. Then we have Nedic, which is kitten backwards. When that dawned on me, I was so surprised that Nedic is kitten backwards.
Never thought that.
Now you'll never be able to unsee it. No. He's from New Zealand. Just want to make that clear. He's not Australian. Same as Addict, who's also from New Zealand. Then the Hazza. The last two I just said are from the Bad News Kangaroos. Nedic, obviously, from Rooster. And then MHL, the Orpal with DJL coaching. Now, I feel, like I said, gentlemen, I feel like I've spoken about it a lot, but maybe not. Where was I talking about it? Were you guys listening?
I mean, you referred to it a couple of times, and it was like very vague because you didn't know what to say because you're in some way tied to the organization and to this team. So we heard a little bits and pieces from you, but nothing very concrete.
All right. Well, my involvement is nothing in terms of like official involvement. Talon reached out to me like late last year, and they were wanting to get into Counter-Strike. And I spoke to one of the owners, Sean, who did the YouTube video about the announcement. And they were just essentially, they're interested in getting me on board, right? Because they wanted to make a team within Australia / the region. But I was like, I just want to kind of help, give you some consultation, really. So they wanted to pay me and get me on in the org and stuff in some role, but that hasn't come to fruition, and probably more on my end than anything. But I don't think I have the time or the capacity to do that, but I wanted to help give some advice.
In other words, you're lazy. Yes.
Well, mate, I had like a deal worth like 80 grand go through the gurgler because I was too lazy to sign a fucking contract just, a couple months ago. So that's, yeah, really, yeah, fucking not good. But yeah, so when they
Can you just get me in on that, and like I'll take 50%, just so you don't miss out on these opportunities.
Yeah, or something like that. But look, when this first came around, there was obviously conversation about just potentially getting the Greyhound guys because they didn't have an org, but went to go buy them, and each of the players had like a pretty hefty buyout. I think it was like 200 grand or something, right? Because at the time it was assumed that they were going to qualify for the major. This is before they didn't qualify for the major. And then I said to the guys at Talon, I was like, I don't think they're worth like 200 grand a player. Like I wouldn't spend that money. I would just wait because they probably won't qualify for the major, and then we can get them for free afterwards. And then tried, but they went with FlyQuest. And I think the reason they went with FlyQuest is because, as like part of my advisement with them was, I said like, if you want the team to actually compete, I think you need a European AWPer. And maybe there would be like one other personnel change that you could make, or maybe try and bring in a European coach or something, right? So I think they, as the Greyhound guys, wanted to stay together, which is, I believe, the reason that they went with FlyQuest, because FlyQuest are letting them stay with that 5 until the end of the year, I think. So Talon still wanted to be in the space because they want to try and support Australian Counter-Strike, because the owners are part Australian. And they were just asking to still put together a team, and we just threw some names out there, and this is what got put together. And they just spent the last 2.5 weeks in Malta, just playing. The 3 that don't live in Europe will probably stay in Malta, and Aaron went home, and MHO went back to his home, and then they played today and they got dumpstered. So that's the story of Talon.
Did you see them in Malta?
At least, well, Aaron, I actually saw them all, but Aaron and I went to the gym one day last week, and then I went back and checked out their house, and that's it.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Nice. So you're an esport consultant now. Are you
like, I didn't get paid. I did it for free. Like it was, I've done it all for free. Is that a smart move? I don't think so. I think I'm like,
usually those people are in it just for the money, and it's like, it doesn't matter if they actually have any influence.
Yeah.
But like, DJL coaching and Pita is here. How can you do it to the man? He couldn't like put in a good word for Pita to coach this team.
Well, look, that's true. I didn't even think about that. What didn't come through my mind. But Peter, what do you know about DJL? This is better than me talking about. What do you know about him? What do you think about him as a coach?
To be honest, even though like he coached an IP and I also have been there, I have not like heard that much about him in that regard. Like I know there was some talks. I think Olof Meister was the one bringing that topic up. Like, how did he get into an IP? And I think it was because he was good friend with Hampus. So it was more like a friendship between them, and he brought him in. Apart from that, to be honest, like I don't think I've ever been in any sort of like discussion with him or anything else.
Okay, so no overlap.
Yeah. I guess generationally you also got kind of missed out on each other, like when you were mostly in the Swedish scene and like on Fanatics and IPs and stuff like that. He came in much later than that. So
well, do you guys want to say anything about the Talon team?
No, I feel like I just saw, just like kind of like a response to DJL's reputation. I feel like he's getting shafted quite a lot for what happened at an IP. And although I kind of understand that because he was there for kind of a long time through one of their worst periods.
The
I feel like
Gunderson era, we call it.
I was going to say like a lot of it was clearly not his decision making, when it came to the roster and stuff like that. So I feel like he's getting the bad end of the stick for none of his faults. So I'm just I feel like his reputation is kind of down in the doldrums for no reason at the moment. I hope he can kind of recover it.
I don't want to say it's for no reason. I feel like if you're a coach, you have some responsibility, even if you don't have all the responsibility. It's kind of similar to the Zeus and Liquid situation with this latest lineup, where he said like he didn't pick the players. He essentially just kind of got skulls in, even though that was pretty much decided that they wanted him. So, but he's still the coach, right? You either step down and say like, this is shit, I can't work like this, or you make stuff happen. Right. You can't really, because also if everything goes well, then does he get, if someone else picks the team and everything goes well, does he get zero credit for it? I think he would still get, the positive credit, but so some negative credit has to go with it. But I also think like, obviously there's a lot of limiting factors, not really that he shouldn't get another chance in any way.
Yeah, so we'll see what happens with that team. Obviously, they're going to try and qualify for the RMR for Asia, and we'll see how they go.
I heard you guys. I don't know if you can comment on this, but I heard you guys were looking at Ultimate first.
Yeah. So this would have been through Aaron and DJL. They were like scouting and looking for AWPers, and they were in conversation with getting him. But then from one day to the next, I think that he had been in conversations with Liquid for a while. But yeah, I think the offer was like officialized, and then he told the Talon guys that he had an offer, so he went there.
I mean,
but
to be
they
honest,
were in conversation with him.
If I was in his spot, I'd be like, this Liquid thing isn't real, right? It's not real.
Yeah,
so let's entertain all the options until it's like on my desk and signed.
Make sure you've got the contract in the inbox first, right? Yeah. So that would have been through DJL and Azza, who were doing the scouting looking to fill that role. So yeah, there you go, Striker. Last bit of recent news. It's not really another big one we can talk too much about, but they played their debut game today. It's the new TYLOO roster. So they had Zoking playing previously. It's been rumored for some time, if you keep up with the dirt sheets on the forums, of people talking about Starry to TYLOO, but that move happened, and Starry joins Mosier, Mercury, Jamyoung, and G from Linvision. So those two are from Linvision. G actually was there for a little bit of time now. In the TYLOO roster, and this roster is essentially just like a brand new generation of Chinese Counter-Strike. It doesn't have like Summer or Somebody or any of those old names beaten around anymore. It's a brand new generation, even though we've seen a bunch of Mercury and Jamyoung and Mosier before, and even the other guys from Linvision. It's like the next gen. So first glance, this team looks like it has like a lot of firepower, but it's going to be the classic issue for China, I think, where the direction of how they approach the game is going to be the biggest drama. But probably gearing up for the major, right, guys? I'd imagine Shanghai. You want to do well. You want to qualify. You want to see if you can take down the Mongols. It's going to be some stiff competition in Asia, I think.
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, this move is. I mean, it's kind of interesting that he would leave Linvision, because they've been looking like the better team for a while now. But there's been a little bit of a shift towards TYLOO, so I feel like they could be the best Chinese team from now on, and they could be the ones to take the fight to Mongols after these moves.
Yeah, they just lost to Rare Adam the other day, but that was before Starry was playing. So yeah, we'll have to see what happens there. But another piece of news we're not going to spend too much time talking about. Cool?
Yeah. That's
all right. Great.
Yeah.
Everyone's up to date. That's awesome. World Counter-Strike, Asia and Oceania.
Asia is doing stuff. That's good. Like, it's good that TYLOO has a team that kind of makes sense. You know, they've been in very weird like flux for forever. So that's my like. If we're doing the positive and negatives, it's a team. Let's fucking go.
It's a team. All right, nice. There's the highlight. All right, let's get into Blast now. Peter, you said you've been doing the broadcast, obviously on the Swedish side. Were you doing the Blast broadcast?
Yeah, so we're following the games of NIP.
Okay.
Yeah.
Exclusively?
I think so. Yeah. I'm not sure. I mean, I have nothing to do with that except for just commentating. So, but I think so. Yeah. Okay.
Who are you commentating with? Anyone the people at home would know?
Maybe like if people are super old, a guy played a semi-professional in at least he played in CS Source. With some, I can't remember exactly which team it was, but his nickname is RDL.
Okay, yes.
Of course, yeah. He was in like Godsend Coach like a while back, exactly. Like in 2016 with Lecro in that lineup, right?
Yeah, correct. So he's the one doing the play-by-play, and I'm, sitting there and trying to say something smart once in a while. Oh, shit.
Okay, we had a former player transition to play-by-play. That's kind of crazy.
Yeah, he's super good at it, to be honest.
Shit.
One thing that I have to just mention, I think, I don't understand how you guys, especially you, SPUNJ, like how you guys even manage to like. I do 1 BO3 commentate and I'm fully drained all day. I don't know how you can manage so many games on broadcast week by week. It's insane.
Yeah, I don't know. I think we just hate ourselves a lot, right? You get to that point where it's just like, how much can you put yourself? No, but I think when we have pretty good conditions when we're doing ESL events, so it makes it pretty easy, and they've given us this really nice like casting setup too. So yeah, the days go by pretty quick. If anything, in some of these events, I've been like, shit, we've only done one game today. What do I do for the next fucking 20 hours? Because you only go in and you cast for like 3, and it's like EWC, we had these really big voids. But that's the thing. If it's a really exciting game of CS and you're locked in, it can be like, it can be pretty draining, but it's sick fun. Like someone said cocaine. No. Only legal substances like caffeine. Okay. So that means that you covered the NIP. Well, look, I guess we could start with NIP. Why not? Why don't we start with a bit of a Swedish flavor, and we can jump back to Liquid and go a little bit more in there, because that's going to bleed into the Cologne preview. Whereas NIP aren't in Cologne, right? Is that Am I correct there? Yes, I am correct there.
You're correct.
So let's talk about the teams at Blast who we're not going to see in Cologne, and then we can start a bit of overlap because that's going to play into some of our predictions. So you said it at the start, Peter, Swedish Counter-Strike hasn't been where it probably should be. Once the Kings of the Castle, through Fnatic, through NIP, SK Gaming as well, and this is obviously going back in time. But you're looking at this new NIP roster. You've got 3 Swedes in there. You get yourself a bit of Isaac, Maxter, and of course Rez, the 1972 IEM Oakland Grand MVP champion, with a Ukrainian AWPer and a Spanish in-game leader. But what did you make of it? Were you happy? Were you pleasantly surprised? Was it what you expected?
Not at first. The first lineup that they had, but as the time went by, I think like it was evident that there was some sort of ideology with what Threat was trying to build together with Exist. Like it just felt like the roles, like there was a thought behind the roles, with having Isaac in the team, Maxter being young coming in, Rez obviously having a lot of experience, and then I didn't know much about Wrinkle when I first heard him joining NIP. Obviously, during my time with 00 Nation, I think we played him a couple of times, so I did do some anti-stratting against that guy. But apart from that, I didn't know too much about him. And then obviously Alex, so when you mash all those players together, it does make sense. My only question regarding NIP is, like, apart from the roles, like, do they have the players that are supposed to be able to step up when it really matters? Like,
is the quality there?
Yeah, like, should they get someone who is right now? I think like Wrinkle has been playing really good. Apart from the last game yesterday against G2, I think he did like tremendously good. But apart from him, it's like, who is supposed to step up? Like, who is supposed to put up Nico numbers once in a while? Like, I don't expect them to have a Nico kind of player or, Donk kind of player, but they need to have someone who could just go huge once in a while, because otherwise I think they would just be in some sort of a limbo, as maybe Astralis is right now. They will be around 10, 15, but not winning any titles. So, but, the most positive thing, just to sum the NIP topic, I think the most positive thing is, they have nailed the management side, at least from my perspective. They have Eric Vendel, who is, I think he worked previously with ESL, as a talent manager, and I think he's super smart and humble guy, and then obviously him being the head of talent and the head of esports. Maybe he doesn't have that too much in depth regarding CS, and then he has Threat by his side. So I think those two are a really good duo, and then obviously Exist, who has been through it all, both in 1.6 as a player and then in CS:GO, and most recently in CS2 as a coach. So I think they have something really good going on. I don't know if this lineup is the right one, but I think NIP can bring Swedish CS back, even though we have to use a Spanish dude and a Ukrainian.
Yeah, I'm curious, like, obviously Wrinkle is the real deal, but you wonder with NIP if they stay hovering around, well, if they can make into like top 15, top 10 and be that type of team, right? You wonder how long it is before they transition back to full Swedish, if this right now is just like a transitional thing. Obviously Wrinkle, like I said, is the real deal. When they brought in Alex, they were leaning much more international. But let's just sum up Group C, right? So they're in a group with, it was FaZe versus Cloud9 and G2 versus NIP. They were the openers. They lost to G2 both times, where they played them in the opening and the group final. But it was the wins, Prof, that could be getting people excited. They beat Cloud9 2-1, but they beat FaZe 2-0, which is going to play a big part of our FaZe conversation a little bit later.
Yeah.
But them beating Cloud9, right? Like we did the 1x bet, what are the odds?
Yeah.
Regarding Cloud9 last week. And NIP would have been the team that we, if we were going to be saying that they were going to win a game, it would be against NIP, right?
Yeah, and I mean, I think we all lean towards NIP in that, and mostly because it's a known quantity versus an unknown quantity. We saw something from NIP before the break. It wasn't like, oh my God, they're the best team in the world, but like reaching final in Yala Compass, and then having like a semi, I think, in Argentina in Fire League. Is that what the name of the tournament is? Like, okay, they're doing something, huge difference to where NIP was like just a few months ago, where they're just like as we would say in Croatian, just like a trash can to like kick around in the schoolyard. Like everyone just like you just show up and you win, kind of. That was kind of the state of NIP. So, and we also saw Wrinkle. I think that was a huge thing, because you see that there is at least one guy here who has the star potential to carry some of these games, even if they're not the greatest. You know, not everything is going how it should be. This guy can pull them through some weird rounds, and I think that's what we saw in the Cloud9 game. Him getting hyped up, the rest of the team like following. I think we saw some rounds, you know, from Rez, from Isaac, from, you know, Maxter was having a pretty shit time, and then the FaZe game on Inferno, he was top fragging. I think, I don't know if he ended up at the end of the game, but he was for sure carrying them through the biggest portion of that. So I don't know. It's looking pretty decent. Not, again, I don't put them in a top 10 category. Like, maybe if they touch number 10, then that's kind of where I see them peaking right now. Yeah. But compared to where they were, this is a huge improvement.
I mean, you see some sort of a trajectory, right? Because, I mean, maybe, as Pita was saying, you know, in terms of, I do think that there's still kind of a firepower problem, right? Or kind of star power, more like, because it is basically Wrinkle who they're kind of relying on to have some consistent like star performances, and even he is kind of up and down, and that's just through the style of a player he is. Like he's going for a lot of these plays that can be very risky, and he has to do it if this team can compete against the better teams and sometimes take them down. I mean, we saw that in the FaZe series. He was just kind of running around doing what he wanted, but you can't really rely on that as your sole fragging output, right? Or at least to start, like the big numbers that you have to put up in a game sometimes to make the difference, right? So it seems like the second, third star of the team is lacking at this point. So maybe it is just a question of, okay, they will change one more player, and that's what will get them to at least to the level of contention where they can do some deep runs. Maybe it's not going to be title winning lineup, but at least they're getting closer to that discussion, even if they're not there at the moment. So there's a lot of positive signs, even if you know, at the moment we wouldn't put them anywhere near the discussion of winning any titles.
I'm curious what you guys think about Maxter, because he was quite a bit under fire after the first few games. And is it just me, or I feel like that's unreasonable? Like, this is a guy that came from the academy team like 2 months ago. Of course, I don't expect him to be, you know, carrying the team, and this is his first big tournament against like tier 1 opposition. In my opinion, makes sense to just give him more time. I don't know. I feel like the obsession in CS to talk about like player changes. This guy needs to. We don't need to remove a player every month. Like that doesn't really make a lot of sense. So I don't know if I'm just on this boat right now.
I don't have a very good grasp of what his potential is, right? So this is where Chen and Pita could be a pretty good option as the Swedish Counter-Strike expert we have here. Prof, you've been dethroned. I know you spent a lot of time in Sweden, Prof, but you don't have the mantle this week. So Maxter, Pita, what do you think, right? Because I agree with what Striker's saying. You would think that it should be Rez and Maxter, because Isaac's a supportive element and Alex is in-game leading. So do you think he has the potential to grow?
I really do.
Okay.
Obviously, I think his biggest issue is, I think he set too high expectations of it on himself going into this last tournament. Like, I even had to, I don't know if I should mention it, fuck it. But like when I was doing the commentary, like when we were watching Maxter, I really felt bad for him, because I know that he can play on a much higher level. Like even in scrims on FaZe, it's like he's playing really good. You could just see on his reaction, like body reaction, when he was dying in some weird scenarios, or when he was not like hitting his shots. Like, he was super frustrated, and it was so much more into him, like his way of playing. So I think that he needs a lot of help mentally.
Okay.
In terms of just, you know, getting the full trust. Like, I don't mean like...
It makes sense, by the way. It was also like,
no,
he needs mental help.
Yeah, yeah.
We all do.
Seek help, as Kassan would say.
Yeah. I think he's just putting like the bar too high. That's what I'm trying to say. And you know, I had to talk to him. You know, I don't know if my advice is enough, but you know, if I could just tell him one thing, which I also did, was like, just try to remember like how you died during all these rounds, because you could see like him being spammed through the smoke, a teammate missing a flash, like all these stuffs, and then he's just piling up. I think it was like 0-6 or something in one of these games. And when you're young, you don't have that experience. I think it's difficult to get back on track, and I think that was one of the things that he has to just get better at. I think NIP should definitely try to keep him. And the question is, as you guys mentioned, I don't think Isaac is the one to be removed at all. He's super good. He's taking a lot of difficult positions. He is a team player, like throughout the way he's playing, the way he's entering the sites and all that stuff. So I think the biggest question mark is one of my favorite players that I ever worked with, and that is Rez. And does he have what it takes to be that X factor alongside Wrinkle? Because right now I think he's playing good when his teammates are playing good, but he needs to be that guy who is playing good when his teammates are not playing good. So he needs to also work on the mental side of the game.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense that Rez needs to especially be like, considering the pedigree of what he can do. And I feel like we've been saying that for a long time now, but NIP have been treading water for a long time now, right? So, but again, and I like the point that you touched on there, Prof, because NIP once upon a time was an org/team that we had elite level expectations for, but that hasn't been the case for a period of time now. The same with Fnatic, which is really sad, especially if you're a Swede, or especially if you're an old school fan of the game, because those were two orgs that played a very big role. I feel now that the elite level teams that we expect elite level performances from, and probably ones where you're like, well, why? Like, they don't have time to bet in this player or for them to see if this works out over time, would be your Navis, your Vitalities, your G2s. Liquid is another example. FaZe is another example, right? For sure, yeah. They're the like upper echelon elite teams that can't fuck around. They need to make the right decisions to make the big blockbuster choices, where I think NIP, because of their poor performances, have kind of bought themselves a little bit of leeway in that regard, and they can start working back in. So look, the runway would, I imagine, for them to try and qualify for the major. And if they stay on the trajectory they're on right now, that's very possible. Will they go deep in the major? Probably not. But are they a team that could make it to the major with the type of performances that they're putting out? Yeah, right. And that's if I was NIP from where I was, that would probably be the goal. So they have the rest of this season to try and work things out. And yeah, all good. Okay, we got anything else you want to say about NIP, gentlemen, or we want to jump forward?
Yeah, let's go to Cloud9, I guess. Yeah,
Cloud9's a safe bet. So obviously we discussed them losing to NIP, but this was the new roster on debut. They also lost to Draken's team online as well. Speeds. So yes, an Orgless team, but so they've been a little bit embattled to start out their debut with the roster. Now their opening game actually felt like it was okay, because they took a map off of FaZe, and you're like, oh shit, like that seems all right. He's had some good moments from Icy, Axel against FaZe, that old trope. Heavy God, being quite handy and in moments. For some of the games I was a bit worried about Inters, but then they dropped down and they lost to NIP, and then they were eliminated from the group stage, right? So the initial taste for this team, and this is another team, because what was it, around this time last year, when the super team came together, right?
Yeah, it was the player break, right?
Yeah. The expectation for that roster was super high. And now for Cloud9, it's very tempered. Like, even though it's a huge name in esports, I don't look at the new roster they put together and go, yeah, these guys need to win right now. So I liked what I saw from the names that should be delivering: Icy, Axel, and Heavy God. So for me, thumbs up. It was all right. Yeah. I was okay.
They were literally a round away from beating FaZe, right? I mean, there was that like one situation that Inters got all the shit for, basically, on the B bump site that could have ended it all, basically. So they were hell close to actually getting that series that we said they probably wouldn't, and even against the opponent we never actually expected they would. And obviously, I mean, that also says something about FaZe, but I think you could see from Icy that he's legit. I mean, he definitely has the talent to be on the tier 1. Whether he's going to be able to do this consistently, who knows? But he has the peak. He definitely has capability to play against these teams. He's generally more passive, but he seems to understand when to go for plays and stuff like that. He will overstep every now and again, but I was impressed with him especially. And it seems, as you were saying, Exile is getting back to the level that we were kind of expecting him for, and I wonder how much that is. Like a lot of people have been saying that it was kind of the Inter's combination that unlocked him in the previous version of Cloud9, and maybe there's something to that. I mean, they play some of the sides together, so it's been kind of fun to see them back.
I mean, I saw also a post about Electronic and Exile with Electronic and Flit with Electronic, and both of them without.
I saw that, yeah.
Which was obviously sample size is not the biggest, but it is. They're obviously kind of riflers that want to have some space, do some plays and stuff like that. And Electronic, as we know, pretty vocal and has his ideas about how to play the game, and also wants to do a lot of things himself, not just tell other people what to do, which limits what other people can do. So I mean, I don't want to go in the whole VP thing, but it is kind of looking like we called it would be, that some of the other riflers are not going to be that great, not having as much fun as they did maybe previously before Electronic. But in terms of the Cloud9 thing, I think they looked pretty good. The Heavy God was playing, I think, more active than he was on OG and like in previous teams where he was more like an anchoring position. Now he is more in rotations, and like that's also interesting because in theory, like Exile, Heavy God, Enters are all players that like to anchor as well as Boomich. So technically they had like 4 CT side anchors on the teams, even though like Heavy God and Exile obviously were the overqualified ones in these roles. So they gave them a bit more freedom, and it's working out pretty good. I think the calling was pretty good from Boomich. So overall, they're looking solid. I think obviously kind of heartbreaking that they didn't get a single win between NIP and FaZe when they're super close on both. But I was also very happy just because of the hashtag one guy on Twitter that was calling me out with a prediction. But I don't wanna be that guy and getting obsessed over one person. But it did feel super good to be correct. Let's just say.
It's always nice to be right, man. It's always nice to be right. Pita, your thoughts about Cloud9? You got anything? Do you think they're going to be a good team, or same type of conversation we're having with NIP? They're probably hovering somewhere in the top 20.
Yeah, I mean, I think Cloud9 needs to. I'm really not sure about Inters because I do get like a little bit of G2 vibes with Nexa. I think with today's meta, when you're having like your lurkers / anchors, they need to be a little bit scary for the opponents, because if you are an anchor on A side, Mirage for an example, and you know that you're going up against Inters, like with all due respect to him, you're not that afraid. In comparison, let's say you're going up against Robs, against Robs, you're maybe holding the angle a little bit extra. You're calling for a teammate to be close in rotation. I don't think that's the case for going up against Inters. And as you guys mentioned, Heavy God coming as a lurker, but like when he was in Endpoint, he was there like heavy lurk, and then going over to OG, and now into C9, he's more active. For me, it would make more sense having Exile and Heavy God being, at the edges of the map, while you're having Boomich, Icy, and someone who is used to being very active, like in the group. I think that is like the next step for Cloud9. But at the same time, like I don't know how the player market looked for them, and if Inters was the best option they could go for. Because usually when we see, at least I do, but usually when I see all these big club names, you're thinking, oh, C9, oh yeah, they should be able to get like whoever they want, basically. But then you look at who is available, and you're like, what the fuck is this? The same like Liquid had with the Opper. Like I watched the show when you guys were talking about who they should bring in as an Opper, and you went through the whole list of Oppers, and I think it was who was it? Launders. He was like. There's no Oppers available or something like that, So I think we don't know exactly what went through with C9, and if they just have to settle for Inters. As I said, all respect to him, but I think he is. They need to have someone with a scarier name, if that makes any sense.
I mean,
his position.
Yeah, the way he played some of these rounds, like Beyond Mirage or Beyond Dust 2, like the super passiveness. Over time, it's just going to be easier for people to deal with. I think if you're either side of the like super aggressive or super passive, these are things that kind of get figured out quite quickly by other teams. This is obviously the debut from the team, so no one had any tape, or you can know kind of how Inters plays in general, but if it's not the same team, I don't think it's even worth kind of doing that research. The way he played was like some of these rounds, like the hiding on bench on Mirage or playing on the big box in the middle of Dust 2 and just not peeking when 99% of top players would kind of search for that timing when the player is peeking on you to peek on him, right? And not just stand there and wait for him to kind of kill you essentially because you're hiding behind a box and he can see you before you see him. But that's also kind of what Striker was saying. That behavior helps other players be activated because you're saving a bit more time for them to rotate in. You're supporting with the flash. You're doing this and that. So maybe for the start of the team, it's not bad to have a player like Inters who at least gives you a solid foundation, even if he's not the scariest player. But I agree. I think that's. I'm not super happy with what I saw, even though I love Inters. Always, he's a cool guy.
It's a bit unfortunate, I think, that and look, position-wise, I'm not in the nitty and the gritty, but like a talent of somebody like Magnajez going to BetBoom, like when all of this stuff is happening with a team like Cloud9, right? It's a bit of a shame for a Cloud9 that they miss a name like that, who could turn out to be something pretty good. All right, well that's Cloud9. Do we want to bother talking about the Gamer Legions and the OGs? Do we? Like Gamer Legion had some moments. I never really want to talk about OG. The OG have never
Gamer Legion,
done anything.
I mean, they're just fun. They're just fun to watch, and it's just so much more of an interesting lineup than it was the previous version. I don't mean the previous version, the latest one where they already had Slend and Undo, but I'm talking about the one just before that.
Sure.
And it's just they just have so many players that can do things. Like anybody you look at, like they will just have rounds where they just completely take over, and it's just really fun to watch. Maybe it's not like 100% working together at the moment, but they are very exciting team to watch, even if they ended up losing both games against Vitality. They won the first match, right? I'm trying to remember that.
Yeah, it was
that match. That was the one that I was watching.
Was popping off.
Yeah, and it's just you can see that the bet on youth is working out. I mean, these guys are all really excited to play, it seems like, and I really like that from a team. CTR was even having a lot of rounds on Anubis in that win and like all that stuff. Like it is just a team that I'm really excited to watch for the rest of the year and like early next year. And I'm hoping, this isn't like they don't get forgotten in these last few months just because they won't have so much to play compared to a lot of these teams. And that's going to be important heading into 2025 when you have to have the ranking to get the invites and all that stuff. So I just hope they get the opportunities they deserve at the moment and then carry that into 25 where these guys will get some experience and start doing something.
So I have a question for Pita. Why the fuck did ZTR get kicked from Metasport? That makes no sense. Ooh. They're much worse now than they were before.
Yeah, I don't know how much I can tell you after the show.
Okay.
With all due respect to, because I know some of these guys, and yeah, but from the outside perspective, I fully hear what you're saying. That was also my first thought when I heard that he was getting benched, because it felt like they have had everything correct in that Metasport lineup, but I will tell you after.
So there is something that happened behind the scenes. Okay.
At least what I heard, but yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
Juicy.
Right. Okay.
Oh, sorry guys. You won't be hanging around for that one. We will be though. All right. Yeah. Let's get into the overlap now, I suppose, because as I mentioned, we're going to have themes or things that happened in Blast that are going to directly impact the way we talk about Cologne. So I think there's three headlines. There's probably more headlines, but there's three that are in my head right now. So how about we just go with those and we'll keep building on those headlines and we'll see what happens. But let's pick our poison here. I'll go through them and you guys can pick which one you want to start with. Heroic having issues getting degster on site, which is going to, they had to play with Saul, and they did beat Complexity once, which was kind of funny. But they will have to start Cologne without degster and an unknown stand-in. Striker, who's the unknown stand-in?
I can't say. I heard the name, but it seems to be it's not. I heard it directly from the organization. I told them I wouldn't share it, so I can't say it. I will not comment on anything. I will open it to complete speculation.
Sad.
It is an
All
opera.
right.
I could say it is an opera at least. I
All
think I
right.
could say that. So.
Okay, so they're trying to fill the role. That's nice.
Yeah, and it's
the-
not. Yeah, we were told it's not so, and they were able to submit somebody. If somebody has gotten a hold of the lineups, they're probably going to be able to figure it out. I don't actually have them, so I don't know. Otherwise, I would be able to share something because I would have it from a different source than the actual organization. But
Shit, they're on to
I
us.
can't do it right now.
They've just shut down Prof. They're on to us.
Yeah.
They heard us
They're
say-
on
we
to us,
said-
guys. They're on to us. I'm here, but for just my Chrome.
But what I will say, it would be a worthy replacement if the name that I was told that would come in. They would be a realistic. Like, it won't make them so much worse than if they actually played with degster. I would say. I think it's a good player.
Okay, all right.
But he has to be simple then, right?
Oh,
But he's
Can you
bro,
keep the poker
how
face?
Simple hasn't played for a year and something now.
Yeah, but it's
it doesn't mean
simple.
anything.
yeah, that's who I wanted it to
So
be.
it's Forest.
Wow, yeah, because he's an AWPer, right?
Because he's a primary opera. Yeah.
Look, so that was one. Like, we can either delve into the heroic talk now if you want, but that's the thing. That's almost like a non-starter of a conversation purely because of that element, right?
Yeah.
Like, Striker can actually say the most out of all of us without saying who the player is, whereas the rest of us are in the fucking dark. We're like, well, who the fuck knows who it's going to be? It could be anybody. They don't have their fifth. They're going to do bad, right? Then we've got obviously Liquid on debut, and then finally FaZe and the Electric Boogaloo to their destined demise if they don't get their shit together soon. So which one of the three do we want to kick off with?
Let's go Liquid.
All
Yeah,
right.
I think Liquid
It's
the
fun.
most. Yeah, the most to talk about there.
All right. Well, look, gentlemen, I want to get out the gates on the Liquid one. I want to make sure that I say this front and center, because when we talk about this, they're gonna get that bias fucking paintbrush out, guys, and they're gonna try and paint me. That I'm not gonna let them. I'm not gonna let them paint me. The voices in my head. I'm not gonna let them paint me. Justin played mid to poor. I will say that I think he played mid to poor.
Okay.
And I think he would think he played mid to poor. But fortunately, Twistzz and Naf are fucking amazing.
Fucking beasts, yeah.
They are amazing. Like, those
Naf has
two
impressed the
guys.
shit out of me because he's the one who's been he's always been Mr. I can do everything, and he's been moved around a billion times, and somehow he keeps doing it, and he's like in the best form that I've seen him in a long time. Even now, like it's insane how he keeps doing that.
Obviously, with Counter-Strike maths, they beat the number one team in the world twice. So that means that Liquid are, of course, the number one team in the world.
Number second.
the context playing into this is key of it being the group stage, and there was still another opportunity for Na'Vi when we could talk about the Na'Vi stuff in the future. But I guess we're just going to look at the positive signs that we saw from Team Liquid. So, Peter, when you were watching Team Liquid and you saw this roster come together, what were you expecting? Like, obviously, this is a great result, but if we put the results to one side and you look at the type of Counter-Strike they were playing and what they were getting from the players, what's your takeaways?
I mean, my first takeaway when I heard that Twistzz were supposed to be IGL, I think I reacted as like 90% of the community. I think it was, I think the call from him to transition into IGL might be a bit too early in his career. I think he is too good of a player. Having this thing about falling down individually because you're paying too much attention to what your team is doing, what your teammates supposed to do during the round, all this stuff. I think it will take a hit on his individual level. I don't think it did now during blasts, but I think it will eventually do. At least, like, if you look. But like, it doesn't have to do with my experience. I think just throughout like CS history, we've seen this so many times. Players thinking that they have the ability to be in IGL, and it's all fun in the beginning, but then all of a sudden you have to be first on TeamSpeak every morning. You have to be prepared with at least an hour of talking and watching demos, yada yada. So many things outside of the normal schedule of a top player. So I don't know, I think it's more of a personal trait if you're able to have that, because I think Twistzz in his role, I think he can manage to be a decent IGL in that regard. But yeah, I mean, I think JKS and NAF, I think they're just stable players in their both position. I think everyone on the team knows what they can expect of them. I think Ultimate, he had some good games. I'm not gonna lie. I wasn't super fascinated, throughout the whole tournament. But yet again, like he's basically coming out of nowhere, at least from me. Like I have not heard that much about him, and the fact that he can take that step into tier 1 and play that good as he did, I think he has a bright future in front of him. So all in all, I think this team can become good, but I think the biggest question is how much will Twistzz be able to withstand in this new role.
Okay. Yeah, I think like the Twistzz question, like with him playing as well as he did, it's the longevity of it, right? Because you're right. We have seen other players of high caliber take these positions before, and maybe in the beginning when everything's going right, it sticks. Look, I can only take the guy at his word, but I've spoken to Twistzz like a decent amount in person, and the type of like during the break, I went out for dinner with him a couple of times and whatnot, and heard what his plans were and the way he talks and thinks about the game. And unfortunately for him, maybe fortunately for him, he's got the same mental illness I do, like only thinking about Counter-Strike, but he's not as mentally ill as me in terms of all the other facets. He doesn't have the voices in his head. So he's got only the good stuff going on. So like all the stuff that he talks about and the way he talks about it, he makes, like, I'm a 35-year-old man. He's 24, but he's a million times more mature in everything in the way that he talks and looks at all the things than I am. So obviously, again, I can only take him at what he said, and we'll have to see how that develops, and that's going to be a big concern. I think this type of debut, though, with that success, maybe it's, maybe if they can continue moderate success, because they did say, didn't they say in an interview or something, it's like a long-term thing. They don't expect results straight away, but then when you have results straight away, then maybe you're thinking you should be doing better than you are. And I don't know. I think overall, I think
it's just kind of like compensating for the start of the year, where obviously expectations were high from the beginning, and like even if internally they realized that it might take some time for them to get on the same page, there was always pressure from the outside. So I guess they're just trying to compensate for that this time around, so that they just don't get ahead of themselves early on, because that's a trap that a lot of teams can get themselves into when they get a lot of big names, and it's not always reasonable what people expect from the outside, just because of the names that you have on your team sometimes,
Well, I think another thing as well is we always have to keep reminding ourselves with these Blast group stages that it is a group stage and that it's only partnered or affiliate teams as well. So that all plays into it. Obviously, Cologne is going to be the bigger test. Their results, even though they're good, you can't put the same behind them as you would like G2 with the deep run because of the type of format of the event, for example. But still early in the season, so that always plays in.
It's also that like nobody ever saw them play before this, right? So like people have a week now to catch up with what they're doing, or maybe a few days before they play next. So things will get harder from here. People will, like Twistzz will have to get a next level to his leadership, right? Like call some fakes on what the tendencies could be of the team and stuff like that. That's always what happens after, like let's say a month or two of the new team playing up. Like it gets harder for them, So even if it's obviously a good sign for them to be able to beat Navi twice in 2 separate series, it's not going to be easy from here to keep that up.
No, I think like with the ways they did it as well, there was a lot of clutches in the first series that they played.
Oh yeah.
And then obviously in the second time they played, Ultimate had that really big map on Inferno. But I was surprised that they won Anubis twice in a row. I thought, okay, well now Blade has a little bit of tape on them, and I know Anubis is a bit of a sore spot for Na'Vi.
A bit up and down for them, yeah.
Yeah, that they should just be able to shut it out. It's like, we know what they're doing now, like, the way that they're approaching the game or the positions, et cetera, et cetera. So maybe they can just, get it done. But the fact, like, Na'Vi actually seemed pretty disappointed with the loss, and they were also being frustrated today if people were watching their complexity game. They were just, which is probably, oh man,
like we shouldn't be here. We should have already finished this.
Exactly. But I think, Prof, like in terms of the best possible start for the roster, you'd have to say this is it.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. I was actually I was listening to a podcast with Semphis and Automatic, and I think that and Valence actually, and they were talking a bit about like where you need to peak as a team and like how you pace yourself, you know, how good do you want to be, how fast and stuff like that. And realistically, you know, there's so much in CS that you can learn as a team and develop, and there's so much depth. But realistically, you need to be good as soon as possible. You need to be good in the next 2-3 months. And if you're trying to do too much, then you probably won't be good in the next 3 months. And then you'll just change roster, or people will just, you know, hate each other to the death of the team, right? And I think this is something that the Liquid team is right now is doing super well in terms of their approach is they're so not even aggressive, but they're very combative. I feel like they just want to go for trades. They want to go for fights all the time. And early on, this is also something that is hard to predict and know what's coming. And, you know, maybe that is short-lived, but that short-lived success is still success, and it's better than fucking losing. And I really like the way they're playing. And also, I don't think it's easy to have this cohesion that they already have in terms of, you know, two guys are just going to run through a smoke and trade on a guy where they need that space, or they need to clear one half of the map so they can rotate off and, you know, from A to B on Ancient or whatever. And they're constantly going for these fights for a team that is really new. Like, obviously 2 player changes, but also some, you know, positional changes, new coach and all of this. So I was really impressed by the speed of decision making of everyone on the team, you know, across the board. So I really like that. I do think that's also something where they will be challenged now that people have seen how they play, and especially for Cologne. But it's a really good starting point. That's my kind of takeaway from Liquid.
Well, it seems like Vertigo is going to be their perma ban, which is
amazing. Love that.
Yeah, get that out of here.
That also, by the way, helped them against Na'Vi. I mean, the second time around as well, even though they ended up getting destroyed on Mirage anyway, you know, they banned out Nuke, which, by the way, like, Na'Vi have kind of slowly but surely this season seem to have made Nuke their new home map. So that's going to be interesting, but that's more of a side note. But
well, then Mirage and Nuke are both pretty strong.
Yeah. But they haven't lost Nuke in like 6 games now in the new season, so it seems like it's working out for them. They probably put a lot of focus on it during the break, I would imagine. What I was going to, I mean, we haven't spoken about Ultimate too much yet. So obviously, I mean, everybody remembers that first game. Like that was like the first impression we got from him, and from much more of their games, it feels like that's kind of the case for him in general. He just has a lot of moments where he's completely invisible, and like there's a half where you won't notice him at all. He's just, you know, silently getting kill here, kill there, but nothing like very flashy or anything like that. And then he will have a great half out of nowhere where he will just like have a lot of multi-kills, you know, go for a lot of plays and make them work. You know, we saw that against Na'Vi in the last map. We saw that in the first map against Virtus Pro. There was like one more that I can't remember which one it was. I think it was one of the Na'Vi ones as well, from the previous series, where he just had a really good half. So I feel like they don't need more from him. I don't think that he needs to be more than what he's shown already for them to succeed, as long as Twistzz can keep up the kind of numbers that he does. Obviously, we were all kind of looking to him and to see if he would drop off after this. So far, it hasn't been the case. But as I said, it's going to get harder. He's going to have to focus more on certain calls, mid rounds and stuff like that. So T sides are probably going to be more difficult from here on out. But I mean, skill wise, I mean, he's insane. He's still as much of a headshot machine as he's always been, and like nothing's taken away from him. So at least short term, it seems like it's not affecting him. And so if he and Naf can keep this up, JK doesn't have to be some massive star. He can just be a decent anchor, and like he doesn't have to be the guy who's taking over games. Yakindar is also seeming to be improved. Like obviously up and down, he had a horrible Mirage against, was it Navi as well, I think.
But he had a strong Anubis, for example, or he had a good Ancient.
Other than that, Mirage, I mean, he's an entry, obviously. Like he's in a lot of risky positions, and sometimes it's going to work out, sometimes it's not going to work out. But overall, he's definitely looking up compared to the previous version. So overall, I think it's kind of hard to poke holes in this Liquid team in terms of firepower. You know, it's not like you have a obvious weakness that you can look at and just say, okay, this is the guy we'll focus on, or this is the gap where we can find them. You know, it just seems like Ultimate can be the kind of an X Factor opera, and that's fine. I don't think he needs to be more than what he's shown so far.
I think the only issues I really saw with Ultimate, they let him go for as many aggressive peaks as he seemed to want on both sides, which I think is fine. And you also don't want to neuter a young AWPer's like will to go for fights. The last thing you want is an AWPer who becomes a pussy, and then you don't have that option to find those opening picks because they're too scared because you've told him off for giving away the opening death too many times or something, right? Which is a fine line to strike a balance of. But sometimes when he was in these positions, he would pick poor timings to start searching deeper, and then he would get caught between like two angles and he just get shot in the side of the head, and it was like, bro, why the fuck did you do that? We couldn't quite work it out.
But sometimes I saw that for the whole team. I mean, what Prof was saying, like that they're just combative as hell. Like they are contesting everything all the time. And it's like if they're in a position and they have somebody reasonably close to them, they'll just go. And the other guy will actually follow them. I mean, Prof was right. There's a lot of cohesion there. They are just fighting for all of the space that they can. And so I wonder if it's just kind of like a Kerrigan type mindset, you know, where Twistzz is just taking a page out of FaZe's book, where they're like, okay, if you feel like you want to make a play, just go for it. And that just seemed like the game plan for them all tournament long, you know, where they were just all going for plays all the time.
All right, so this is what I want to do, because otherwise we're going to be flip-flopping around and coming back. And I understand that normally we're a little bit more structured with this of how we talk about events, but I think because the conversation is more nuanced as opposed to like, oh, these guys are going to beat these guys, we can dive in a little bit right now to how we expect Liquid to go in Cologne, right? They're going to start in the play-ins, and they're going to go up against Pain in the opening game, and then they're going to play either Furia or Imperial in the follow-up if they win or if they lose. And now it's best of threes the whole way. So, Peter, I'll throw it your way with everything we've spoken about here, and obviously your interest is, can Twistzz keep this up in the long term? I guess, fortunately, this is the short term. Do you think what you saw from Liquid, the game is deep enough for them to beat those teams and make it from the play-ins to the main event?
Yeah, considering the teams that they're going up against, there is like, I'm a little bit worried if they get overconfident with the result that they just they had for Blast, because it's 3 BO3s, 2 games against Navi and 1 against VP, right? Yeah. So, you know, it's great and all, you know, but it's all about not getting overconfident, because as you guys also mentioned, you know, the peaks that they were just going for sometimes didn't make any sense. You know, I think overall their T sides throughout the whole event didn't look that good, except for Anubis, which is also T-sided in some sense. So, you know, their CT sides were the ones winning the games. Now going into these teams, it's a big question if they will be overconfident and, you know, being like a team, you know, Brazilian team just, you know, stomping them. So, you know, we'll see. But overall, I think the start that they had at Blast, I think it's good for them coming into the next one.
Yeah, it's weird to call, because Pain are a team in their region who take care of business, right? Like Pain with Big U0 always seemed pretty strong, and then Furia seemed improved as well over there in EWC, and now they've had more time. I think they came back, they're on the same plane as me, coming back here to Malta to keep practicing in Europe. And then Imperial obviously have the newer addition of Try. So for the Brazilians, this part of the bracket seems really fucking juicy. But I feel that the class of the players across the board in Liquid should be a determining factor. Like, I'm not getting into the nitty and the gritty of the map pool too much, but obviously we need to see them get tested on more maps. It feels like Ancient and Anubis will maybe be their go-tos. Their Dust 2 didn't look so bad either. But I would have, out of the teams in the play-ins, if Liquid can play to the type of form that they did, even if they lose their opponent's map pick, that they should be able to grind out these victories with, I don't want to say they're individuals, because there was huge moments where like Naf had like, you know, and they bowed them out. They bowed themselves out of these things. So I would have them making it through the play-ins. But yeah, this is the thing. It's so difficult to make that call. But I think what I saw was enough from a team element and an individual element that if they fix the mistakes, that they only have, 2 days? So one day will be a travel day, one day will be a media day. So to fix the issues and get on the same page, there's not a lot of time. But I still will back them in. Prof, what are you thinking?
Well, I'm on yours, like backing you,
backing me. Okay, all right.
Yeah, I kind of agree. Like, I don't see. Obviously, anything is possible. We don't have that much information on them, and it's a different ball game being an underdog versus being a favorite. I have to say, just as a side note, one of the things that kind of annoyed me about them beating Navi, especially the first time, is how for some reason so many people wanted to phrase it as they beat the #1 team in the world.
They beat the number one team in the world.
Because everyone, it is technically correct, but everyone doesn't really think of Navi as the #1 team in the world. So when you just say they beat Navi, it doesn't sound that cool. Like, oh, they beat FaZe, or, you know, they beat Vitality. It would sound cooler if they beat Spirit, Mouse even. But Navi's #1, but they're kind of not that cool. So we'll just say they beat the #1 team in the
reigning
world.
major champions.
Yeah, I mean, I just think it's a kind of a fun little thing that was a bit. It was really like, let's just frame this to make it sound as cool as possible, but it was unnecessarily trying to make it bigger than it was. Like, it was a great result anyway.
That's what we do. It's the entertainment business, Prof, right?
That is true.
We're trying to make everything seem huge. Striker, would it be safe to assume that you think things are going in the way of Liquid are all going to be good? They can make it from the play-ins to the group stage?
I would say so, but I do agree that there's a lot of danger in that side of the bracket. I mean, there's also a lot of there's kind of a personal battle if they end up playing against Furia. But even if it's Imperial, you know, it's not a team to scoff at. You know, those guys have shown time and time again they can upset these big names every now and again. You know, so it's not an easy route through to the main event. So I wouldn't put it past them to lose one of these games for sure.
Okay, so I'll throw this one out to the room, and then we'll move on to like FaZe or something along those lines. But if we throw this into the room, so we think that they have a decent chance to make it from the play-ins to the group stage. Is there any expectation past that?
Into the main tournament, you mean?
Yeah, could they make it to the playoffs? Because obviously this is the problem with talking about it with this type of format. We don't even know which group they're going to get placed in. So we can't even measure it, right, against are they going to be in? Because one side of like Group A, I think Group A has G2, Na'Vi, Spirit, and Astralis. Whereas
that's rough, man.
Yeah, it is. Whereas
especially
Group B
has
FaZe, Vitality, Mouse, and
VP.
Yes, VP. And three of those names have some.
I mean, we can kind of get into that discussion, right? Like, I mean, I think all of us would probably agree that in Group A they would be up against the ropes. I mean, it seems hard it looks hard for them to beat, like, let's say two of those four teams, let's say, or three teams even. Obviously, they've already beaten Navi, but both of them were very close. I mean, third time around, nobody knows how that's going to go. Astralis have looked pretty strong. G2, obviously, Spirits. You know, the angle that I was going to go with is, I think there's a reasonable chance also because I don't think there's anybody who's particularly dominant at this point. I mean, we're heading into Cologne with like 7-8 names that could potentially win it. And a lot of it is also because there's been weaknesses. I mean, even if you look at Spirit, we'll talk about them later. But I think, you know, they've shown a lot of weakness in the groups. I think they are kind of, I don't know. I was looking at their last series against Complexity, and I mean, they were very likely to lose that even at certain points, you know, if it wasn't for like the 1v2 from Shiro and stuff. So there's none of these top teams look like they're in tournament winning, like, favorite form or anything like that. Nobody's stable at the moment. So I mean, why wouldn't Liquid be able to beat two of these names, you know, like if they meet the right matchups? You know, I don't see that I don't think that would be a crazy thing to say that for them to make playoffs.
Yeah, I think for me, I just err on the side of caution with this type of stuff, right? I'll go, okay, honeymoon, context to start a season, haven't seen them go, like, I think that the capacity is there, right? But when you talk about the field in that fashion, sure. But I also guess it can work both ways in the sense that it is the start of the season and that these, like the way G2 ran it to the final in EWC. So anything could be possible if the teams have a high enough caliber of player, which I think Liquid does, and a strong enough understanding of how they want to play the game as a team. So yeah, I guess I can see it from both sides. I just want the voices in my head to stay quiet, so I won't go one way as opposed to the other. All right, let's shift a gear. Let's get into something that is concerning, and concerning because not only do the results make it look that way, but so do their tweets. FaZe, they are flailing right now. The big stage trope of this team doing well at the big events and, you know, being a stage team, I feel that that shine is starting to wear off. Obviously, this was just a group stage, but as we look at the tail end of last season and we look at this team now struggling to get it together, and then also after the losses, they lost to NIP, but then they came out on Twitter, a bunch of them like Rops, Carrigan, and Frozen. The tweets were not like, it's just a group stage, who cares, like Cologne around the corner, let's fucking smash, this is where we do our best work. It was one where it feels like there is true concern within the camp. So gentlemen, is FaZe on a downward slide, or can they pick themselves up, dust themselves off, and pull it together for Cologne? What do we think?
Who's taking it?
No one wants to jump on the landmine because we all just want to say, yeah, it's FaZe. Of course they can turn it around. Of course they can.
I've kind of lost hope, to be honest.
Okay. Now it's concerning everywhere.
And the problem is, like, I haven't even made an opinion about why. Like, what it is that why do they suck all of a sudden? Like, I have a hard time identifying it for like the last 3 months or whatever since they stopped contending for these deep runs, you know. And it's just very baffling because I think a lot of people will be understandably looking at Rops first of all, but at the same time, like, these issues aren't coming from him, especially just because there are a lot of situations where he just doesn't have anything to do from the positions that he is in a lot of the time on T side. Like, of course, if you're looking and unless you're particularly aggressive, you're not going to be able to get into situations where you can win rounds on your own. You know, you're going to be left in 1v3s or 2v4s saving, or just in situations where you're very unlikely to win the rounds. So even if, obviously, if he was playing better, there would be situations, he would be able to get them into situations where they can win more rounds. So it's obviously it's a part of it, but I don't think he's like suddenly the only problem, that they just change lurkers and like somebody who's just better in those positions and they'll suddenly start beating everybody. You know, I don't think that's the singular issue, but I don't know what else to point at the moment, you know?
It's tough. It is tough.
I mean, someone actually in chat mentioned that their like T-side trading was the worst out of all teams in Blast, but their T-side win rate was the worst out of all teams in Blast. And that's like with OG being there, you know, with the IGL stand-in. How is that even possible with these players that they have? I honestly felt inverse of Liquid in terms of like the team cohesion. Felt very bad in some of these 2v2 1v2s, some of the stuff that's not super technical Counter-Strike, where you can sometimes fault FaZe for being simplistic, but also have to accept that that's their style. If you're playing a 2v2 and you don't play wall off of each other, there's no excuse for that, especially for FaZe. I feel like that's always been their forte, and also it's not like they made some huge changes on the team recently. Even the Frozen thing coming in, that's also a player that has a lot of cohesion with players that are already there, and it's one guy, and that's been not months since that happened, right? So I'm just confused when I see some of the rounds that they lose. Honestly, that's been very worrying for me.
Okay, yeah. Well, Pita, do you have anything, you know, with FaZe that's worrying you? Because right now I feel like we're in like Alcoholics Anonymous, and we're all sitting around and we're talking about these deep dark fears that we shouldn't be talking about.
Yeah, I think, you know, while you guys were talking, I was trying to, you know, remember, because I did cover that game against NIP, and one of the things that I think we're lacking from FaZe is, you know, having more of these, at least on the T side, where they're just working off each other way better. Because I feel like, as you also mentioned, like they're playing a very loose kind of CS, and the loose kind of CS, it's all up to, you know, hitting your shots. And obviously they have some really skilled players, but once those shots are not landing, then, you know, the rounds are just falling apart. So they need to be able to, you know, maybe shift away a little bit from the meta that they have been using for quite a while, and, you know, being able to adapt. So when the players are not hitting the shots, then the team needs to hit the shot together, if it makes any sense. And, you know, I think also what Kerrigan mentioned during the interview, I think this was the pre-game or post-game, I can't remember exactly when it was, but it was with the NIP game, and he mentioned that they have been focusing a little bit more on, you know, the bad things that they're doing instead of, you know, positives. And I think this is, you know, the biggest issue at least what I've experienced as a coach, it's so easy to find issues that the team is doing. Like you can watch any team and you can just find issues every second round. And when you're just focusing on them, you're building that tension up towards those players, and at the end they're just feeling like they're doing everything wrong all the time and just overthinking situations instead of just going with intuition. So I think what Kerrigan said was they need to start looking more at the positives. I think that's something that they need to do. Obviously, it doesn't sound that easy to do, but they just need to get some wins up and get that positive. But I think the easiest fix for them would just be to work, at least have some rounds where you could just fall back on as a team, get some more structure into that team. Yeah.
But I wonder, do you think, like, this is pure speculation because it's so hard unless we are talking to the players or we hear things, right? And I'm not in that position. I don't know anything with this. I'm kind of just talking out of my ass right now. But it feels like if they continue going in the way they're going, and maybe it's already starting to creep in as a bit of like discontent, whether that's with each other, whether that's the way they're approaching the game. They went from being in all those finals, they obviously won Chengdu, to then the tail end of the season, and I don't want to say the excuse, right? But the rationale was, oh, we're burnt out, which is fair because they were going deep in so many tournaments, right? They were going all the way, and you're playing more matches, and then you're trying to stay on top of your game because you are going deep, so you're still a massive threat. And then going into the break, it's like, yeah, they just need some R&R, and then they'll come out the other side and everything should be all right. But the first two looks haven't been great, and then the concern, because I always want to make sure I say this every single time because people miss it. We're always talking about this with the context of start of the season and newer teams. Like for some of them, like for NIP, that's more like the Super Bowl with them getting that result. Whereas for FaZe, like it's important for them to get that result because they don't want to have to play the showdown, but it's not as important, right? Like we're just the way that we're measuring these things.
Yeah.
But then the tweets come out and then it feels like it is really important for FaZe with them losing those games. So
I think it's more, that's probably, I mean, obviously it's important for them to qualify for those big events, right? And not have to go through the showdown, but it's also, I'm sure the pressure is just mounting internally as well. And they're just probably confused, just as confused as everybody is, like, as to why they keep losing and they don't have the same level as they did before, even on the individuals. And so I don't think it necessarily has to do with the tournament result or like what tournament they're playing in, but just not winning. Like they just keep losing in situations where they don't understand why.
This is a bad time to be having an identity crisis, though.
I want to add that
Cologne.
They did not have a boot camp from what I noted in the interview. So will that happen maybe now before Cologne? Because this is all kind of part of the let's not get burnt out. Let's peak, let's aim for Cologne, maybe aim for the major. I don't know how they prioritize it. Obviously, every team is going to do it differently, but it seems like this is now their ramp up period of like intense ramp up period, but you can't really ignore just the aspect of winning and being in form. That's something that's very hard to quantify, and it's hard to get back, as both of you and Pita were talking about. It's a tricky position that they're in now. That doesn't mean that just going for a boot camp of a week will solve their problems, because they feel that they're so deep in the hole right now, and that they need to maybe overcompensate and change things that they don't need to be changed, but they need to do 20%, they're going to do 50, and they're going to like disturb something else in this whole process. So I think it's a very, I don't think it can be overlooked just because it's BLAT group stage. When you get 2-0'd by NIP, I don't think you can be like, this doesn't matter. Obviously if they lose to G2 in a close game in the final match, and then maybe sneak by a complexity in the playoff, then it wasn't great, it wasn't pretty, but they got through. That would be the phase that we can be like, it's okay. But I don't think this is okay, and that's why kind of the tweets come out, because at the end of the day, you can prioritize tournaments, but when you lose, it feels shit.
Okay, so would a fair summary be they're on a downward trend, but there is the phase chance, I think, that they bounce back and
Cologne
in Cologne?
For me, I think Cologne is a big
indicator.
I don't want to say make or break. Maybe that's just slightly too far, but it is going to be a big test to see.
But
what's
this isn't
gonna
the type of team we'd see change roster before the major, right? Like things aren't that level of bad.
I don't even know how they can do that. So
right, so
Yeah.
like that's not even a conversation worth starting. But the signs are definitely pointing down. But at this event, based on what you mentioned before, Striker, there's quite a large field of teams that could win. FaZe would still remain in that category if they play like FaZe can play, like the team at the start of the season, as opposed to
at this point we'd probably all put them at the bottom of that list, though. With what we've seen in the last couple of tournaments.
I just gotta add regarding FaZe. I think now it's the perfect time, to see, what the coach can do, because we're usually often, asking what kind of influence does a coach have within a CS team. I think now it's the perfect time to see exactly, what Neo's up to, but also the people around him. I don't know how many coaches he has around him also, but obviously if you have this team, that you have been good. If you can turn it around, I think that's all cred, to the coach. So now it's the right time to just see exactly how much influence does a coach have in CS.
Okay. Yeah, I think one of the things when we tend to look at FaZe is we put a lot of the strategic side, obviously, on Carrigan, right? But then we hear that a lot of these timeouts that are taken into like half by rounds, it's like Neo's strats that they're running or suggestions that they're running with. And then you piece that together with how Raban used to be for this team, which was quite a big influence on the social side when he was there. So I guess it's going to be a combination of all of those different parts, because to me, they were always, when Raban was there and they were doing those boot camps, you would always see like silly tweets coming out of FaZe. Like they were doing stupid stuff, and like maybe they're just missing a little bit of that, which is so it feels so reductive to be like, oh, they've got to have more fun.
It is very reductive, just because like everybody who's in a winning position is going to have more fun. Like they're just always going to joke around. There's not going to be so much pressure on the situation because they know they're good. Now they're not. So it's exactly the opposite, right? It's not like just have more fun. Like obviously you can't just say that to a team who's like lost so many games, like important games, and like in ways that they can't even explain to themselves, properly.
All right. Well, we're on watch for FaZe.
Yeah. Quick ad break and then we continue.
Yeah.
I just wanted to add like the last like 4 tournaments from FaZe, because I just wanted to go back through to check what teams they lost to, right? And so from groups, Esports World Cup, Spring Final, and Dallas. So the teams they beat were M80, VP, which is the VP that were still fresh off Electronic at the time.
Yep.
SAW, FlyQuest, and now Cloud9 are the only teams they beat in the last 4 tournaments. And the teams they lost to are NIP, G2, Navi twice, Vitality, G2, Spirit. None of the top teams that they played against, they beat. Like every time they played a top team since Pro League, they've lost.
So up until this point, they had been fending off anybody, essentially.
Basically, anybody ranked below them, they beat. But nobody ranked around
NIP.
or above. Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Oh yeah, NIP. Sorry, yeah, right.
Yeah, but that's all right. Well, it's already cause for concern, but that's adding a bit more framing to that. All right, Lucas, run the ad break. We'll be right back. We'll keep talking about all things, Blast teams and what to expect in Cologne.
The world is changing quickly. Shoot up.
The world is changing, but one thing remains the same: victories with 1xBet.
Since the dawn of CSGO, we have been there. Observers of all that competition can reveal. Elation, fear, triumph, and heartache reach out from every frame. From the small studios and conference rooms to the epic arenas, the feeling is still the same. We live and breathe this game. This was CSGO Through the Lens. Buy now at hltv.org/shop.
We're back, and all of you in chat have been spamming. Maybe not all of you. I shouldn't say all of you. Some of you in chat have been coming in here to tell us that Joel has been banned by the Akros anti-cheat. So we will do a quick little bit on this. Now, I don't know why news that's breaking live, I guess they just want our reaction to be like, man, I always knew that guy was achieving
We're influencers now.
Right, but
I have been actually getting some info on this as we were going along. Maybe that's some people noticed I got a little bit sidelined. So yeah, I've been trying to figure out what's going on.
What do we know?
Is it like the heroic fifth? You can't tell us?
At the moment, the TO, I got in touch with the TO, and the TO told me that they validated the ban with Akros. So they say they don't have a reason to believe it's a false positive, but they are being careful just because it's obviously a new situation. So they don't want to say anything absolute.
That's CCT, by the way, everybody.
Yes, exactly. So he did get banned by Akros, and Akros apparently confirmed this ban, like that it really happened. It wasn't just some false message or anything like that. They don't believe it's a false positive. So that's obviously in some way damning, but we don't know how, like, for what it could have been, because I don't know exactly what this anti-cheat could technically ban for. Like, does it have to be a wall hack or a name bot, or could it be just some like off file in the PC or whatever it is? Like, I don't know this anti-cheats to a good enough degree to say what it could have been that he got banned for, because I didn't get that information.
Okay.
Pita, what's your take
on the most controversial figure in Swedish Counter-Strike, Joel?
Maybe I'm not the right person to ask, considering I've also, with the coach bug and all that stuff. So trying to,
I mean,
throw what do you say? Throw stones in the glass house?
Yeah, those in glass houses shouldn't throw stones.
Yeah.
I mean, I think you got caught a few times less than you got involved in a few less controversies than Joel.
Controversy, both work.
Let's just say that. I don't know. It's a great little CV that he's building for himself. At the same time, when Akros is shit, then people say this is a shit anti-cheat, it's useless. But now that Joel gets banned, it's the best in the world, and we should instantly trust it 100% and never like double guess it or anything like that. So
I guess it is important to mention that he plays for this new BC gaming team, right? Is that with Guardians
BC
coaching
game.
that? BC game, not gaming, sorry.
Yeah.
Got to make sure I get that one right. With Anakas, Susanito, Lecro, and Prime Taps. And as I mentioned, Guardian coaching that roster. And he has been their highest rated player. But that's the thing with Joel. He always seems to be putting up good numbers, right? But you're reading in the forums about Joel the scammer, or he's a cheater. Or
but there's obviously the whole easy case that there was a lot of allegations that of cheating. They didn't actually find any conclusive evidence of that, but they did find some betting offenses that he bet on his own team and stuff like that, and other matches as well, from what I recall. So obviously there's been rumors like this flying around him, even if nothing's been strictly speaking proven. So that's just worth adding for context, even if it doesn't necessarily prove anything.
Yeah, I mean, there's been so many rumors within the Swedish pro scene, like at least the players on his level, who are like confident that he has been cheating. So, but that's mostly rumors. Like every time, at least some of these Swedish players, I think there was someone from this Swedish team Alliance who, tweeted something, every time when they lost against them or whatever. It's just like, whatever.
Yeah, I mean, I see all the Johnny Speeds guys, and like everybody who's ever played against him is coming out of coming out of everywhere.
I was supposed to coach him actually in Godsend.
Oh shit! Okay.
Yeah, but then I got the information from people that knew him better, and I think that's
you dodged that bullet.
Yeah, eventually that led me, not taking that offer.
But I think like some of these teams, like I think Godsend was on Godsend for a while, right? And I think they got blacklisted by a lot of online tournaments, which kind of made all of his teammates lose out on opportunities. Even after he left, they just refused to play with the team or invite the team to tournaments, which obviously is a reason to be pissed about that. I think it's crazy. I know people will give like second and third chances to players that perform, but the amount of chances this guy is getting and the pace at which it proves not to be a good idea, it's insane. The combination of that two is insane to me. That's it.
Yeah. All right. Well, yeah, Lucas, you're more than welcome to say something. What would you like to say?
So, from like a tournament organizer perspective, as a guy who's been using Akros for years for like tournaments,
Here we go.
my feeling of the product is like a lot of people say it's shit, and I think it's definitely gotten a vibe where the user experience of using it was shit because it's a small, like a smaller team working on it than, for example, FaZe or some big anti-cheat. But the important part is that there aren't a lot of these third-party anti-cheats out there on the market, and if you don't want to be forced to use FaZe servers and only have the technologies that FaZe can provide, or find another platform like eSportal or Gamers Club, you're kind of forced to use these options or not use Akros. And then you don't have an anti-cheat and people would complain. But having a lot of conversation with Akros, the tech behind it is solid. Like the detections, they know what they do. They just had a lot of like growing pains and like startup, and so they've got a bad rep. But if Akros say they have the data that someone got banned for cheating, I would trust them because the like technology behind Akros is solid.
So just to add,
this is not an ad.
A question to this, a question to this is how many false positive bans have you received through like all of the like Dust2 leagues that
None.
exist?
I've never had a false positive ban. I've had a lot of like people randomly getting kicked mid-game because like some server lost connection or
Yeah.
And that's what I mean about growing pains. Like growing from 100 players doing something, and then 1,000, and then 10,000, and then doing majors qualifiers. It's not easy, and if you're a small team and one of the only products out there, and you get the attention for it, it can be rough.
Yeah.
But it looks like they're doing a good job, and I think it's important that we have these products on the market. Like anti-cheat is important. Look at the state of Counter-Strike. Of course, we need anti-cheat apparently. And
what about Easy Anti-Cheat, Lucas?
So Easy Anti-Cheat dropped their Counter-Strike support.
Oh,
like,
what?
Like there aren't like
our cheats are too good.
Try to go out and find like third-party anti-cheats for Counter-Strike, and it's rough.
Yeah, no, of course. All right, let's bring back Cheating Death. I think only Pita and I might be remembering Cheating Death from 1.5.
Oh no, I wasn't around.
Oh shit, I'm too old. I'm too old. Fuck. All right. All right. Let's get back. Let's get back on track. So we've derailed, guys. The train's fallen off. There's an explosion. We've derailed. We've left the Joel's train. We're back on the regular train. I don't know how that would work. Apparently, my train tomorrow is going to take 2.5 hours. Anyway, enough about trains. More about Counter-Strike. So let's pick another name from the Blast groups that we were like, because I think Striker, you pointed this out, and maybe we can boil this down.
Yep.
Because this is quite important. You said there's maybe 7 or 8 teams who could win this event. Would I be safe in assuming those 7 or 8 teams include Na'Vi, Spirit, Mouse, Vitality, G2, FaZe? That's only 6.
I would say you can. Obviously, it's kind of a stretch at this point just because they haven't really gotten to that point. But I think Astralis are somewhere in that discussion as well, with the right journey, But of course, I mean that's more of a subjective opinion than something that actually is based in results, because obviously we all know they've been struggling to get past a certain level, and they haven't actually beaten a lot of the big teams so far. So they would be somewhere on the edge of that, I would say, rather than like an outright one of the let's say 6 favorites you mentioned.
Okay. Is there any agreement or disagreement with what Striker's just put out here? Like Astralis, he said, is the subjective one, but with the others that I mentioned, right? Na'Vi, Spirit, Mouse, Vitality, G2, FaZe. Are you, Prof, Pita, do you guys in agreement that these are the teams who are in the running for the title?
I'll leave the guest to go first.
Is there anyone here that you don't think can win?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure about Astralis, to be honest.
Okay, I like that.
I think they're also on the same hype train as Liquid. Transitioning a superstar into an IGL. I think they can win some games and bring some good results. But I don't see them as a title contender, not yet at least. I feel like their play style is very, how to say it, everyone is going for a duel basically.
Okay.
At least how I feel like. And yeah, I mean, I don't know how much time and effort Device is putting into the IGL role. It's one thing just calling a strat in the game, but it's a different thing prepping stuff and all those things. So I think they need some more stuff in their playbook before I will put them as a title contender. Yeah.
I haven't been hugely impressed with Astralis. If anything, I was back to trains. I was on the hype train early for Astralis. I thought that this could work, right? And I think the blend of players that they had, but I think the approach to some of the maps, they're strong, right? But I think their weakness becomes when you start to get deeper and deeper into their map pool. It starts to look weaker and weaker. The way that they were able to play on Nuke in the early stages where they were doing those like top takes where they had the double layers of utility, but there doesn't feel like there's more depth to their game, or they're not able to play out like chessboard mid rounds. But if they go on Ancient, I'm like, yeah, okay. Like I think Astralis could beat anyone in the world on Ancient. I think they're a good Ancient team. But and I liked some of the moves that they were doing on Dust 2, for example, when I saw them playing it within the script. I was like, yeah, there's a couple of nice ideas here. Like I even know they lost that overtime game to Falcons, for example, but I still think they could be quite a good team on that map. So against the Elite is where it can be a little bit more concerning. I'm glad that they picked Vertigo when they played against Vitality the second time, because Device had said something in an interview at the early stages of Blast where he was like, oh, at the tail end of last season, we couldn't play a lot of Vertigo. And then they didn't pick it. And I was like, well, I took from your interview that you probably wanted to play Vertigo, and then you could have played it against Vitality and then you didn't. So I think hopefully that's a map that they can flex in certain matchups. But when you're going to verse against some of the best teams, some of them don't really play Vertigo, right? So you might not be able to get those matchups. So I think that they're lacking as well. I wouldn't put them in the same category as the other 6. I think they'd be, like, as you said, Strike, you'd have FaZe down the bottom. I would have Astralis outside of that group, because I think if FaZe play their absolute best CS, somehow they pull it out of their ass. Like I'm not predicting that they will. Yeah. I don't think Astralis can match that, right? So I would have Astralis detached from that conversation. But then at the same time, it seems a bit rich that I'm putting G2 in that conversation when we've only seen them play, 2 events worth with a new roster. But it does feel like there's a lot of potential with how this new team is kind of come together. Now, Prof, do you want to put a cap on the Astralis note? Do you have anything you want to add?
I'll be very short, and I'll just say that I feel like they have pretty much plateaued after their early development with this 5-man core.
Okay.
I don't really see any new progress from the team.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. Let's jump into the G2 conversation, because we just mentioned it there, and I think they're a fun one. Now, Peter, the tweet that you made, and I don't have it up, so I'm not going to be quoting it verbatim here by any stretch, but you were basically talking about the lifespan of this roster and how you foresee it going. And the key takeaways in the early stages, you think it's going to be pretty good, or it can find success, which I would say it's already living up to that expectation, maybe even slightly exceeding, but still only a group stage and a tournament's worth. But then essentially over time, when the growing pains come in and the longevity of the roster, that it would taper out. Is that a fair surmise of the general gist of the tweet?
Yeah.
So do you want to get into why you think that a little bit more? And do you think that the positive signs of G2 is enough in a tournament like this for them to, because they have the reigning champion core of Cologne playing. So that's something they've got going for them.
Yeah. I mean, we're talking a lot about, roles within CS and all these things. One of the key takeaways regarding that tweet is, in the beginning, honeymoon period, obviously, but I think a lot of the problems that they are facing right now, how to adapt to a specific round or how to react, everything is coming from experience. So I think their most recent experience is coming from Hooksy, at least from this 3-man core. How to deal with specific scenarios. Obviously, Snacks comes in with some of his, and then Malps, if any. I don't know how much space he's taking on the TeamSpeak server when they're going through stuff. But in the beginning, they're just applying the copy paste some problem solving into the way they're playing. As time passes, what I meant with my tweet, but as time passes, they're slowly moving away from experience solving into let's solve it as a team. And I think when you looking at that team, I don't know how they will be able to solve it in terms of role wise, because I think Monacy, Nico, and Hunter, they make sense. But it doesn't make any sense, Malbs, at least for me, it doesn't make any sense him playing in the position that he's playing. The same goes, for any IGL like Twistzz that we already talked about. Once time is going by and you're not getting that attention on the server as you're used to, then you start slowly, dreaming back to those old good days when you're playing in those good positions, which will lead to maybe him playing more for himself rather than the team. And I think that's where the frustration might mount up. And that's when they have to, as a collective, try to solve those issues. And I don't know if they will be able to solve those issues. So right now they're just using previous experience as a team to solve problems. But I think in a month or two, that's when they will, as a team, have to solve the issues collectively. And obviously they have a pretty good start, not gonna lie. I didn't expect them to play that good as they have done, but I think the biggest test for them will be by the end of this year on the major. And if I were to just sum this all up, so I'm not talking too long, but I think if they don't make a good run on the major, I think this is somewhat of a how do you say it, nail in the coffin? No, like when you just
I think like what I'm taking from what you're saying here is, or at least my interpretation, like, and I never know how to paint coaches. It's really difficult because we don't know unless the players talk about what they contribute, right? But in terms of like the big brains, I'm not looking at Taz like I'm looking at a Blade, for example, right? Like the way that they solve problems at Na'Vi is going to be through an understanding of Blade and Alexi. Whereas that could still exist for the likes of Taz and Snacks, but I don't look at them tactically in the same way as I would the other two, right? So where's that contribution going to come from within the team? And I think G2 are the type of team who would solve problems, and I don't mean personally, well, maybe personally, but a bit of blunt force trauma, right? Like, oh, well, we just got to fucking shoot him in the head harder, boys. Like, oh, we got, like, as silly as that kind of sounds, that, and they also, if you look at the moves that have happened within this team, they, once a rift or a problem seems like, okay, well, this is a problem, the way we fix this is we change something. Right, like that's that's the way it seems to go with them. They haven't been able to like find a second wind or be able to push through those things. So, yeah, if it does dry up and they don't, this is the thing. I think, Prof, with what you touched on earlier when you were referencing the Valens and Semphis conversation that was being had. Like if they can have like a lot of success early, like we're talking deep runs or even maybe winning one of these trophies early within the season, then that'll continue to give them the legs, like the longevity. It's only when the bad results come that then the cracks will start to form. But with the form that they have right now and the way that they're shooting, and with it being so early in the season, what are we talking about? We're talking about maybe how many maps would they have played as a team at the moment? Like, and that goes for
20,
a lot of these.
Maybe.
That seems like a lot.
20.
Gee, that 20 seems like a lot. I'm having a look right now. I would say, what, 12? Oh, no, wait. They went to the finals of 17. Okay. So we're somewhere in the middle. 17 maps. They have, we know they banned Vertigo. They got tested. Somebody picked a Anubis against them, right? So they had to play Anubis. They've only played Nuke they played Nuke 3 times, they played Mirage twice, Dust 2 once, and Anubis once. And then at the top end of their map pool, one of their go-tos is Ancient, and they also are playing Inferno, even though they've addressed that, hey, it might not be as strong as it once was, but they played that 4 times. So we're talking 17 maps over 2 events worth of Counter-Strike. They already get to be straight within the group stage, so they don't have to worry about the play-ins. You win 2 best of 3s, so there's potentially just another 4 maps, and you're already locked in for the arena. So think about how little, like right now, exploiting tendencies and stuff. If you look at their Ancient, that's one of the only maps where you're going to be able to sit there and go, yeah, they do these things all the time. And even they're doing stuff that's like seems spawn-based. Like the amount of times I see Snacks in A main aggressive with fucking Monacy, I'm like, what the fuck's going on here? Like, what's this motherfucker doing over here? Like, why is he not like some? So their setups at the moment, it still feels creative. It still feels like they're trying new things, and they're not like an old married couple who know, okay, we wake up at this time, we go for the walk, we have dinner at this. Like, they're still trying new things, and there's a bit of that spark. So for Cologne, they're in a really good spot because they're hot. Everyone's shooting. Like Nico's playing well. Hunter's finding impact. Malbs is having these moments. Snacks is having these crazy plays. Monacy is, this is the other thing. We talk about players as, they're not always, this guy had a shit game, but he's not consistent. It's like, everyone in your team is shooting hard, guys. There's only so many kills to go around. Like, it's not always going to be just the 1 or 2 guys getting all this frags. So I think for G2 in Cologne, they have a good shot. There's a case to be made based off their form starting the season. I think they're like, I don't think they'd be my favorite, but there's a case to be made for them. So Prof, Striker, anyone want to pick up the G2?
Their ratio of how informed they are versus how new they are is pretty good. Like in terms of they're still somewhat a mystery of how they're playing, but individually they're playing pretty well. They have enough experience, enough wins behind them to have the confidence at the same time. So that's why I get the hype, not the hype, but what you're explaining as a possibility for them to make a deep run in this kind of influx state that we have right now in CS, where there's not really too many obvious choices. I definitely think there is a chance for them to take a W right here.
If my light stays on, but we'll have more strobe.
Also, like we were talking about Monacy at the EWC, because he didn't have his best tournament ever, but now he was the highest rated player at Blast. So
there you go.
Bounce back. Donk as well was up there. So he also had some insane rounds and games overall. So it's back on for sure if they have Monacy playing like that, and the rest of the team is also in form. I do think it's kind of a crazy combination, but it's somehow working in the short term. But it's definitely going to be an interesting case study to see when they hit the wall eventually how they
address it.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've touched on G2, FaZe, Liquid. We spoke about Astralis.
Did you want to say something there, Pita?
Yeah,
it seemed like you wanted to say.
I mean, the only thing that I wanted to
good
just
catch, Striker.
Yeah, the only thing that I wanted to add, I was not sure if I should say it, but at least from my experience as a coach, when you're a fresh new team, you're never making any mistakes. You're just focusing on doing new stuff. And if someone is over peaking, whatever, But as soon as you start losing, that's when you start addressing these over peaks. And, you should play smarter in this scenario, blah, 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 blah. And I think once G2 hits that wall, when they come to that scenario, that's when I'm afraid, if they will be able to pick it up and, actually develop. Because G2 recently, at least in comparison to G2 with HooXi, I think, they're going for so many repeaks, sometimes not even, just playing the scenario, after plant, maybe just, plug out the keyboard, go AFK, and you will win the round. They will, proactively trying to find peaks. And, as a guy who has worked with HooXi, I know that he's, very interested in those small details, watching the games after and trying to see, okay, was this, duel even worth it? And if he strongly believes that duel was not necessary, he will address that to that specific player, and, we kind of go back to the thing that I mentioned in the beginning of this podcast, was that when you hear that you're doing a lot of mistakes, you're slowly, you're overthinking some scenarios. And I think watching the G2 today, it feels like they have, some release of pressure, at least from, HooXi, watching them. So Monacy is just, re-peaking stuff. Sometimes doesn't even make any sense, but he's just going for it. And sometimes it works, sometimes it's not working. And I think once they start losing and he's, keep on repeaking, then I think someone might want to address that to him. And that's when I think that, there will be a downward spiral for their success.
There's a few like overlaps of themes though that could come into a bit of a deeper conversation here, right? Because FaZe are having issues at the moment. We're talking about, potentially in the future when G2 could find some issues. Those are two teams who you would say want to approach the game in similar ways. Obviously, these teams have strategies and, they understand how they want to play the game off of each other in scenarios. But when you're talking about Hooksy and, this isn't an optimal fight, we shouldn't take this type of a duel, you're kind of putting a leash on well, I guess a leash doesn't really go on a wild horse, does it? It would be a
saddle.
A saddle. Yes. So you're kind of putting a saddle on this beast that is so majestic and can do all of these awesome things, and then you're making it domesticated, and they're not so awesome anymore, right? But I think the thing is, obviously, there's a balance between the two. But where I was going with this was the broader conversation is the solution with these teams for them to actually have a higher influx of changing players more frequently, so they're constantly in this state where everything is a little bit new, right? Where they're one or two players a little bit different, right? So that then you're maybe getting an output of your core all the time. Like, we're not talking about having an Astralis level dynasty. We're talking about maybe for a 6-month period, every year and a bit, you're like the best team in the world. Like,
which is probably enough,
Yeah.
If you time that at the right time, you win the major, you win this and that, and that is
Katowice and Cologne as G2 did,
Yeah, which
just peak at the right times.
Like, that's fine, right? I guess.
Yeah. I mean, I've thought about it, so you're not the only one having voices in your head regarding this. but to be honest, like, there's so many teams that have had short runs but really decent runs, like Cloud9 winning the Boston Major, for example, having Tarek as an IGL. That could be the potential meta in the future. Changing players more frequently and being open about it also, and just putting in these extremely skilled players into a team. And once you start realizing that they're overdoing stuff or overthinking stuff, that's when you let's bring in someone else now.
Yeah, there's
Maybe.
a cutoff.
I don't know.
Well, that's the thing. If there's the understanding on the highest level of that, everyone knows how they need to play Counter-Strike to a degree. It's not like a Blade system, for example, because that's the other key distinction at the moment. Is Na'Vi, we're talking about, you're not getting enough out of this star player who's playing these star positions, but they're winning as a team. It's like they're playing some of the best team Counter-Strike at the moment. And sure, it helps to have Bit, have these pop-off performances, or JL be your major MVP, for example. But overall, they're playing some of the best like problem-solving Counter-Strike. I think they look at okay, this is what they've put out. We need to solve it this way, or we're going to do this, and then they're going to respond this way. And that's why normally when Blade takes these timeouts, his adjustments are like spot on, because like, well, we're ready for this. We knew this was going to happen, and now we're just going to adjust like this, guys. And so it will be fun if one day we could get a little bit deeper down this rabbit hole. But at the moment, we can only really take it from the
I mean, Blade is the guy who actually understands this type of stuff. That you're not supposed to actually say a lot in interviews about what your system is and what your thinking is about every situation. Sometimes that happens. Obviously, it would be amazing for us if they did, but teams will never share the secrets.
Give us all the voice comms. That's what we want. All right. So we've spoken about. Do we want to talk about Na'Vi? Like, what can we even say about Na'Vi? They're going in as the favorites to the event, the world #1, but they've had a bit of a shaky showing against Liquid, who they had no tape on.
I don't know if they will actually. I wonder if they're actually going to be the betting favorite for Cologne. I mean, I would have to check that, but
I think it would
have to be. It would have to be very close between like 3-4 teams. I would imagine.
Do you think Mouse would be in that?
I'm just looking past. I mean, they could be. I mean, they only lost to Na'Vi at DWC, right? So they could be somewhere there.
The people who do betting odds factor in the fact they haven't won in an arena.
Yeah, that's probably. But I don't know if that's something that these betting companies actually take into account. They're generally working with data from match wins, or match results and tournament results, rather than what type of tournament it was. So not exactly.
Well, this is where I guess the group stages get a little bit interesting, right? So, for example, the fact that Na'Vi and Spirit are on the same side, these are the things that, and we have G2 in there as well. So this is where the groups get a bit exciting. So only one of G2 or Spirit can make it straight through to the semi, right? Whereas, like, let's say G2 versus Spirit in that second round, that one of
Na'Vi, G2, and Spirit.
Yeah, yes, but both Na'Vi and G2 slash Spirit have the opportunity to try and fight for it, right? And if they lose that game, then they're just going to be placed on the other side of the playoff bracket, which I think is important, right? Because for Na'Vi, especially, if you look at how their best of 5 went, it didn't go too hot, right?
Man, so I'm just hoping, like, I'm just looking at what's the worst possible case we could get for this. You know, like, imagine Liquid get thrown into that that group. You know, like it's. I mean, who else is somewhere up there? I guess Complexity, if they got thrown there, that would also be rough, because
if the Mongols, Complexity, and Liquid all ended up in that group, it'd be like, well, fuck me.
Yeah, exactly. You know, it could be pretty rough. I mean,
or
and
Heroic.
It's not what? Sorry.
If Heroic get degster, and that would it could all be a mess.
They get him in time as well. Yeah, that could be a one hell of a stacked group. I guess we'll find out, right? I mean, it's. There's always the possibility, because there's some level of randomness to how it's decided. Even if not, it's like pools based on seeding, but then it's random between the pools, like who gets thrown in both groups. So there's always some world where it can work out pretty badly.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, if Liquid got thrown into that group B, I think this tournament gets very interesting, like in terms of who can make the playoffs and stuff like that.
Yeah, we will be able to revisit this. Obviously, we're doing a. Oh no, we won't, because we're not doing one for the group stage. We're doing one for the playoffs. Yeah. So that's going to kind of suck in that regard. Okay, let's. Are there any other names, any other big names that we want to spend some time talking about here? That would be Na'Vi, Mouse, Vitality. We haven't talked about Spirit. So any of those 4 that anybody has.
Spirit probably. Mouse we didn't see play, so there's nothing new. Vitality, they had a good outing here, but I feel like we've been. Okay, this is a quick question for you, because you've said, their CT sides sucked, and this time their CT sides were very strong. So how do I respond?
Yeah, good job, I guess.
But what did you see? What was different? Was there something different?
I don't know. Most of the time, I was just talking about how the woke mind virus is affecting Justin, and he's been sick since the 8th of July or something. Now, I don't know what I saw that was different with them, to be completely honest with you. I feel like I've come ill-equipped to talk about Vitality, but I don't know. What I can't even remember who they fucking played. I remember the Gamer Legion game, because they lost the first match.
They played Astralis twice.
Oh, then they beat Astralis twice. Yeah. Well, I'm a little bit off on Astralis as well.
Yeah, they only played at Gamer Legion and then Astralis twice.
Okay, well.
Yeah. I guess just Twitch drama for you then.
That's all I've been keeping up with. Yeah.
I mean, regarding Spirit, I said it earlier. I was a bit dejected by the game they played against Complexity. It just felt like they were, especially Zontix. I mean, he definitely had an off game, and it looked like a game where he just suddenly decided he's not a smart anchor anymore, and he was just like pushing for information in positions where they're in an advantage, you know, like pushing up ramp when they're in a 4v3 looking for information, gets killed, gives them a lower bomb site for free. And it was just like one example of like 10 of the same that I saw him make in the same exact game. Like on Anubis, he gave them a site I don't know how many times from like being aggressive behind the smoke and the choke point and stuff like that. Like it was crazy amount of mistakes from him. But it wasn't just him. It was also like Shiro was also putting himself in very aggressive positions in situations where it didn't really call for it. And
with that one round where he was like, I'm going to actually push short now mid round. I was like, you can't make it there. There's no way. Yeah. And then he gets flashed and just sits in the middle between like the A bomb site and short. Is just sitting on the ledge there. And I don't know who was, I think Alish like swings and sees him as like, why would he be here? It's kind of like shocked that he's getting such an easy kill.
Yeah, because Sheer was like, I think he started that specific round, he started on middle, then he went long and he was already pushing up aggressively against a long take. And he like made a shot there, but it was obvious they were already getting the control, and then he wanted to push short after that, you know, when they were already having long control, and there was going to come the A crunch, you know, from both sides. So it was just very dejected. But it was like one situation out of a few, which sure, honestly, I didn't see like that many of them, but there was like a couple that really stood out to me. There was like another one on Nuke on lower, where he was like the only one on lower, and instead of like backing up the ramp where he had a teammate, he ended up like hiding behind the crate where he was possibly going to get crunched from both door and what is it called? Well, from both sides basically of the bomb site, you know. So it was just like situations where I wouldn't have expected him to go into aggressive positions when he's usually the one who turns more passive in situations, you know, where especially like in advantages and stuff like that, he usually is not a big risk taker. And in general, there were just situations where they looked very disjointed.
Hallie wasn't there.
That could be
Where was
part of it, yeah. I actually don't know.
I actually, that you just clicked in my mind. I wanted to come here and ask the two of you because I figured that you guys would probably be more in the know.
Yeah, we didn't go there, so we didn't get to ask, but that is something worth asking for sure.
Yeah, Hallie wasn't there, so I that could have been a bit of a factor. But I know some of the moments you were talking about. For me, when I watch Spirit, it's like they were playing like they know that they're better than the opponents they were playing against. Like, we should just fucking crush these guys doing some of these things. Like, that's what it felt like to me anyway.
Yeah, and it was, I mean, it was just one series because the other ones were like an OG, which obviously we don't have high expectations of, and Heroic, who played with Saw as a stand-in, you know. So they just blasted through those two without too big of an issue, you know. But yeah, I don't know. I maybe it's just reading too much into one series against Complexity, you know, where they had a very off Zontex, and honestly, it felt like generally Magix and Shiro or Donk and Shiro were kind of getting trolled by their teammates, either Magix or Zontex in different situations, you know, where they were just giving away space for absolutely no reason, just missing sprays and all that stuff, you know. So yeah, maybe it's just reading too much into one bad match, which they ended up winning anyway. But definitely some gaps there
for the entertainment. But what do you make of Spirit? Like, are they your favorite going into Cologne? Do you have a favorite going into Cologne if you had to pick one?
Yeah, I don't think I have any favorite, to be honest.
There's too many, right? There's too many teams that could win.
Yeah, exactly. This is not what I'm used to, at least. You know, we always have someone having an era. Right now, I think it's very open, which is also, you know, interesting because you don't know who is going to win. Like in 2018, you knew that Astralis was winning, but the question was who is going to be second. So I think it's interesting, but obviously I think Spirit, they just seemed like a scary team all over when you look at the names. Kind of going back a little bit to what I said with Inters on C9, you know, as an anchor being scared of the potential lurk. In this case, you know, you're going up against Donk, Shiro, and Zontex. At the same time, Chopper he's making really good plays and also, you know, creating a lot of space, working very good with Donk on the T side. So I think they're a really scary team. And if I had to put any team of the ones that you guys mentioned, then I think I would go for Spirit. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's the thing. I feel like I'm such a bitch ass fence sitter at the moment because I'm going in this and like I don't even have a gut feeling when I look at this and go, oh yeah, I really think these guys are going to win. It's so hard because not only does like the form of these teams being a little bit all over the place, but the way the brackets play, like Striker was just talking about, you were talking about it from the perspective, oh, it would be a real shame if all these good teams end up with the other good teams in Group A. And then you look at Group B, where you have some teams that we're a bit more questionable about, like FaZe, for example, who are on the downward trajectory. VP, who, you know, at the moment, it feels like they couldn't organize a fucking piss up in a brewery. Like, what? Like, it doesn't make any sense. Then you've got Vitality, who one day good, one day not good, right? But they're still good. So you're like, well, I don't fucking
love this analysis.
Even if they're not good, they're still good.
Yeah, but because it's like they're good. It's like they're gonna beat everybody they should beat, but are they gonna beat all the really good teams? Like that's the thing. Yeah. So, and then you have Mouse, who they're still getting out of their diapers to play on the big stage games. So that's Group B. And it's like, well, fuck. Like, who do I even want from those Group B teams to make it through?
I think that's kind of the beautiful thing about Cologne, right? I mean, you just don't know. You just can't know what's going to happen at this point.
Feels like an obvious Mouse top the group and then go directly to semis and then have a nightmare. Oh, FaZe, yeah, FaZe is there and they're like, let's go again.
Surely, if they meet FaZe this time, they're gonna beat them, right?
If they meet FaZe though in the group stage and they beat them in the group stage, they still would have beaten them. So at the moment, it's just them beating FaZe that's the problem. It's not stage games. So that might be the catalyst for Mouse.
If they don't beat them now,
they never will.
Just GG. Don't even play the next time. Just
but think about that. If they get the monkey off their back of losing a FaZe, let's say that FaZe show up in good form and they somehow beat Vitality in the upper semi and Mouse beat whoever they face, and then it's Mouse versus FaZe. Both are in the arena, but Mouse defeat them, and it's and maybe they give them a hiding. Maybe they get some really good revenge, and they go, okay, shit, like fuck. Now we don't have that curse carried around with them, and then they can go into the playoffs a bit looser and maybe show the form that we think they can do. Because Mouse, they go. They're like Na'Vi in a way, right? There's a caveat about them. They're a good team at the moment, but there's a caveat about them. Na'Vi have the caveat of the fluke major shit, and Mouse have the caveat of, well, they can't win arena games. And both of them are very good teams. Some of the actual best teams we have at the moment.
And the crazy part is you also have like these teams like, okay, I put Astralis somewhere in that discussion, but like around these 6 teams that we're talking about, like we also have, VP have definitely not looked great, but they have the peak to beat one of these teams. Like on one series, like in one or 3 tries, they will beat one of these teams, and so they will just take out some favorite out of the discussion, down the line, even if they're not going to have a real chance at winning the tournament, So it's like we could be up for like 10 different variations of the bracket at this point. Like it's crazy.
All right. Well, I really don't know where to pivot from here. Because
I mean, we should probably we have the what are the odds, and we have the giveaway.
Oh, let's do that.
Yeah,
then we can talk about Vitality with that, right?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
I think we can.
We've been a bit more roundabout because I didn't want to focus on every matchup in the bracket and everything like that. And there might be some surprise teams, but at the end of the day, like fucking, there's 24 teams to cover, guys. We're just gonna do more with the headlines. Okay, so let's do what are the odds, Lucas? We doing the giveaway first.
Let's get people
how do they win?
The keyword is exclamation mark 1xbet.
Just 1xbet.
Just 1xbet. No exclamation
Not
mark.
just 1xbet. Only 1xbet. So start
ONLY.
1x bet. Type that in chat right now.
But one as a number or
as a number? As a number. Yeah, as everyone's doing, that is your raffle ticket to potentially win the knife that you see on screen.
Yeah.
Because we've been doing the segment, what are the odds? And they earned themselves some money, didn't they, Prof? The people.
Yes, they did. Around 200 euros or something. And also, this is where we started the second season. For the fall part of the year.
I'm gonna enter.
And we have already accumulated 150 euros, or you have, with your predictions by backing Malbs to have a high rating this calls. That was kind of an obvious, like a safe bet came through, and also C9 to win a series, to not win a series, to be more accurate. And there's like 85 euros from that, so almost equaled the first half of the year in it's August.
Does that mean we're doing something wrong?
No, I think just people are guessing correctly. That's it.
Okay. All right. Nice. So we'll draw this at the end of the segment, I guess.
Yes.
Let's. Everyone can keep spamming it because 1xbet will love the interaction. But what are the odds? And this week's question is, drum roll, please. ZywOo will post a 1.2 rating in Cologne playoffs. Well,
there's levels to this, because first of all, we don't even know if he's gonna make it there.
Because I saw a thread today. It was like ZywOo farms Cologne at haters, and it said that he has 1 MVP, 2 MVPs, and an EVP from Cologne, and it's like average rating is 1 point. I don't know. The lowest rating is 1.24 or something, but that is across the whole tournament. So is this fake news being posted, or is it or is it also fake news but in a different way? Is this manipulating the stats for fake facts? Is he gonna deliver? Because the general idea is that he sucks in Cologne. That's what people are trying to put out there now.
Okay. All right, so this is an interesting one. So as you said, there are layers to this. Obviously, the layers are they going to make the playoffs, being one of them, and then is ZywOo going to be in good form? Now, I would say, based off the conversation we just had, there's a fair chance that Vitality would make the playoffs, considering the way that group looks at the moment. We don't know who the other teams are going to be in that pool, but FaZe are in wobbly
if they
form.
get thrown like Liquid in the first match, who knows?
Exactly.
You know?
So I would hedge that they would make the playoffs. I think that would probably be a fair assumption to make with Vitality at the moment, and probably an expectation of their team. But then regarding ZywOo, well, I want to. I'm not a ZywOo hater. I'm also not a ZywOo lover. Like you're just a
ZywOo.
I'm just a ZywOo. Well, yeah. I would just kind of want to be really lame and just be like 50%. Like, I know I need to base it in a bit of logic here, but
Chad moments.
For me, it's like, this is the thing, man. I understand he's a star player. I get all the conversations that we have about all of this shit. And I understand that you need players who are going to be consistent and they're going to deliver, right? But he plays, well, sometimes he plays the gun. Sometimes he plays the big zoomy gun. Sometimes he doesn't. Sometimes he doesn't. But that's it, right? It's, for me, it just boils down to this. And again, I'm very aware that he is meant to be able to deliver the numbers, but it's fucking Counter-Strike at the end of the day. Like, I feel
what does
like
that mean? It's Counter-Strike. What does that mean?
Anything can happen, bro.
Anything can happen.
Anything. Carrigan can drop 30. You know, anything is possible. Like, and that's not a dig at Carrigan. That's just that, like, anything can fucking happen. Vitality, the side of the group, if they say, okay, so they're probably going to play Mouse in the game to go straight towards semis. Let's say they lose to Mouse, so that means they're going to be second in the group. That means they're going to play third place team from group. Oh,
imagine trying to predict who they're actually going to play.
I'm trying.
You can't predict that, but there's.
But if they play third place from Group A, they play either Na'Vi, Spirit, or G2.
Yeah.
Sure. Maybe.
Okay, can I change my percentage?
Yeah, you can.
Based off of the research I've done right in this moment, I'm going to put it at, because those three names I just said, I don't think they would be. But he will. Hold up. No, keep it at 50. Because they're going to lose, but ZywOo is going to play well.
I was
there
heading somewhere into that area as well. He could play one series, you know. I've
cracked it. Yeah, he's going to play one series and he's going to play well. And he's going to get the 1.2. It's all going to be fine. All right, that's mine. Pita, do you get how the game works?
Yeah, I think I do.
All right.
You just need to give a percentage ultimately, but also tell us a bit about your reasoning.
Sure. I'm a little bit also, looking now at the potential, like, let's say they make it through their group. Really depends on, who they're going to face. Okay, let's say Na'Vi, G2, Spirit make it out of the group from Group A. If they get G2, I think he will post above 120.
Oh.
And the reason why is I think the G2 players will play a bit loose, where he will be in a position and a situation where he will be able to get easy pickoffs. While as, let's say, they were going up against Na'Vi, as you mentioned, SPUNJ, they were playing really good team CS, then they know how to handle going into the positions of ZywOo. So it really depends on who they will be playing, at least in the first matchup, depending on if they place first, second, or third. That's a tough one. I don't know. Am I boring if I also put 50%?
No.
Okay, can I put 51?
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
Why not? Of course. All right, 51. Someone said, why didn't I put 49? Why didn't I put 69? You know, anything's possible.
I'm gonna give it less because I'm trying to just like math it in my head. I think chances for them to go through are pretty high, but that's like 75-80%. And then is he gonna post a 120 rating? I think it's kind of on the 50-50 there.
Oh, is it?
I think it's 50-50 in the match.
Okay,
but there's also, will he get to that match?
All right.
So if you add those two up, and then there's also the possibility to play multiple matches. So he needs to play multiple matches to a high degree, which I think lowers that to like a 32%.
Wow. Okay, so you've got 50-50.
So I got like
50,
70%, and then 50% of that 70% is like 35, and then could be a bit lower. That's my quick math.
Okay.
I'm gonna
Alright.
say. So I tried to go somewhat scientifically about it as well, and like similarly as Prof, except I think to give him 50% to hit 120 in the playoffs is low. I think it's like I was going back through his like playoffs ratings for the last 10 events or so, and he's not hit 120 for the playoffs like once, which is the major where he was sick and blah blah blah. So like it is rare for him not to drop 120s in any time he makes playoffs. Like so I would give it the more like I'll say 80%, even like if
in
it's
total?
Like huh?
Your total percent is 80%.
No, 80% for that he will that he will do that he will do a 120 in the playoffs. But then there's will they even make it there?
Sure.
I would say it's higher than 50%. I would say, but I would like average it down to 60%.
Okay. Still.
Okay.
Oh, hey.
Okay.
I think
You
my
guys are
math
on
would actually get even higher from 80% just dropping 120s because they're probably also gonna make the playoffs in like 70% cases or whatever. So generally it would probably be even higher. But my subjective opinion just drops it a little bit.
Well, they would have
lower.
to get shut out, right? Really badly for him to have like an absolute stinker.
Like that's the thing. Like I feel like the conversation around ZywOo has shifted to a point where people think he's shit just because he's not dropping 140 ratings in every series, But he still drops 120s like every time he plays, even if that's not good enough for ZywOo. He still does it.
Sure. Yeah. No, fair enough. Okay, so look, again, we haven't covered off all the teams. Are there any names from the play-ins that leap off the page that you guys as being relatively exciting? Like, did Big have a chance with Rigon? Was anybody happy with what they saw from Big? Who else could? I guess we spoke about Fury a bit before. MIBR had a pretty abysmal showing at EWC. Falcons?
Magisk, I feel bad for him, but he put himself in this position. Everybody's calling for him to come back to Vitality because he's so fucking good and he has nothing to do with that team. That's he had he had a way better tournament in Blast as well than he usually does. So it's not like it's just like he's playing like this all the time. But it was really a rough seeing him do those things and then just lose.
Oh, quickly, we need to draw the winner of the knife. So I hope everybody has got their raffle ticket in, and the winner is Zax. That is ZACCKKZ. Congratulations. I'm sure our people will reach out to your people, and we will get you the knife. So congratulations.
And send us a screenshot of you using it. Looks pretty nice.
Yeah. Well, there is no contractual agreement that you have to use the knife. If you just want to look at the knife, then yeah, that's cool too. So, yeah. All right. Well, I feel that we did a good job of talking about the themes around a lot of the teams that are here, especially the ones that people care about the most. We definitely didn't service every area of all of the fan bases.
Can't wait for a team that we didn't mention to win. But actually, we're going to do the pre-playoffs episode so we can address it then. So
we'll be able to address that.
Yeah. Okay,
but I don't know as far as large storylines go if we necessarily missed anything. I think we touched on most of it. We didn't really go into VP, but they're not really giving much at the moment. Should we quickly and then wind her up?
They're giving mid.
I don't remember. I watched the Liquid game obviously, but that's about it.
Yeah.
I didn't watch the second one.
No.
Fuck VP. We'll talk about them after.
Okay. Well, let's I guess we'll wind it up. Peter, thank you for joining us tonight. Are you doing any more broadcasting coming up shortly for the Swedes?
Yeah, actually tomorrow, Johnny Speeds maybe will qualify for Bet Boom. They're in the final against Pandas.
Yeah.
What do you make of Johnny Speeds? Cool. They've been getting a bit of traction at the moment. People have been talking about them.
Yeah, I don't know. They're just, playing really good right now.
Who's in-game leading that team?
I think it's Draken.
It's Draken now.
Really?
Yep.
Yeah. He's doing a device. He's doing a Twistzz.
After Lecker left, Draken took over, and they're still just as good online as they were before.
I bet Lecro's regretting that now that Joel's just got banned.
That's a rough one.
Yeah. Okay. So, all right. So, is there a Swedish broadcast for the Cologne?
I'm not sure.
All right. Well, yeah. I'm trying. All right. And also, maybe we can leave off again just in case anybody missed it. You want to get back in the coaching game. Do you have a preference, or are you looking for a European team?
I have not thought about it. I'm actually open to anything.
Okay. So if people want to reach out to you, just head over to Twitter. Best way to do it.
Yeah,
All right, sweet. Thank you for joining us tonight.
Thank you for having me.
No worries, mate. Always good. All right, thank you to everybody for tuning in and watching. Thank you to Prof. Thank you to Striker. Thank you to Lucas. Thank you to me mum and me dad. Thank you to 1xBet. And we'll be back, during Cologne from Experion. A couple of days or a day. It's the Thursday, right? We're doing it Thursday.
Thursday, yeah.
Thursday, day before the playoffs kick off for IEM Cologne. It's always great. The streets are always littered with you beautiful Counter-Strike fans walking around one of my favorite cities in the whole wide world. It's a great event. I hope everybody tunes in. I hope everybody enjoys the CS. I hope we get some fun CS. And we'll catch everybody next time on HLTV Confirmed. Good night.
The world is changing quickly. Shoot it.
The world is changing, but one thing remains the same. Victories with 1xBet.
Since the dawn of CSGO, we have been there. Observers of all that competition can reveal. Elation, fear, triumph and heartache reach out from every frame. From the small studios and conference rooms to the epic arenas, the feeling is still the same. We live and breathe this game. This was CSGO Through the Lens. Buy now at hltv.org/shop.